This story begins with a woman, described as a, quote, fat hag with a large belly and round waist, who is inexplicably fawned over by handsome men. It's not because they are genuinely blind or have peculiar tastes. Rather, it's because all females here, once they come of age, are forcibly assigned an unlimited number of male mates. However, because the woman is fat and ugly, her mates genuinely can't bring themselves to touch her. Thus, for 3 years of marriage, none of them have ever laid a hand on her. But the woman, with the spirit of a dead pig not fearing boiling water, tries to forcefully approach them. This only makes her mates detest her even more, preferring to die outside than return home. The woman, holding a grudge, seized an opportunity to drug one of her Black Panther mates, Xiaoyan, hoping to ignite the flames of love. At this moment, Xiaoyan was tied to the bed, struggling. He wished he could strangle the dead fat pig in front of him, but due to the effects of the drug, his breathing became increasingly rapid. Even the woman's ugly fat face started to seem delicate and beautiful to him. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he broke free from his chains, turned the tables, and pounced on the woman, pinning her to the ground. It was precisely at this moment that Shen Tang transmigrated into the original owner's body. In a panic, she instinctively kicked towards his vital spot with a powerful wall lamp kick. Xiaoyan immediately curled up in pain, feeling as if he had seen hell. Shen Tang seized the opportunity and quickly ran out. She followed her memories to a small Western-style house, but the next scene made her almost vomit bile from disgust. The inside was filled with garbage everywhere, and white maggots crawled in the leftover food. She forced herself to endure the nausea and clean the room thoroughly, inside and out. When she entered the bathroom to take a shower, she was instantly horrified by her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was messy, as if it hadn't been washed in years, and her body easily carried 300 pounds of fat. With a casual rub, she could produce gray balls the size of eggs. Her greasy, fat face was covered in pus-filled acne, and her teeth were crooked and stained with a disgusting yellow. Shen Tang couldn't take it anymore. She immediately leaned over the toilet and threw up until she was dizzy. She was disgusted by herself. Just then, a system notification sound suddenly rang in her mind. Congratulations, host, for binding the handsome male capture system. Complete tasks to improve your appearance and increase personal charm. Complete all capture targets to return to your original world and obtain inexhaustible wealth. Her targets were her 5 Beastman mates. For Shen Tang, this was like a timely solution to her urgent problem. Not only could she become beautiful, but she could also capture handsome men and return to Earth. The beginner's gift pack from the system was a detoxification pill. After reading its description, she learned its purpose was to expel toxins from the body and prevent further deterioration. Not long after Shen Tang took it, sticky black substances seeped from her pores. She endured the nausea and scrubbed for 5 hours before finally getting clean. Now she looked in the mirror. After detoxing, the pimples on her face were no longer inflamed, and her skin no longer felt prickly. She thought, as long as I complete the tasks, I can return to normal, right? It turned out that the original owner was once a noble princess of the empire and was matched with 5 top-tier mates. But on her wedding day, she discovered that she was an imposter princess who had been swapped at birth. The queen, feeling immensely guilty towards her biological daughter, who had just been brought home, gave her all the good things. The original owner, consumed by jealousy towards the new princess, began to relentlessly target her, even secretly colluding with enemy forces to try and kill her. Eventually, she was exiled by the queen to this desolate land, and her 5 mates were also charged and exiled with her. The original owner then began to neglect herself, becoming lazy, ugly, and irritable, venting all her resentment on her mates. Later, due to an overdose of medication, she was directly killed by Xiaoyan. Shen Tang was determined not to repeat the original owner's mistakes. That night, she lay in bed, unable to sleep. Suddenly, footsteps sounded outside. She looked out the window and saw a figure approaching. This person was one of her mates, Shen Yi, whose beast form was a red tiger. She recalled the original owner's memories and learned that this mate was her adopted older brother and had grown up with the original owner. He currently had the lowest level of aversion towards her, making him likely the easiest to capture among the 5 mates. At this moment, Shen Yi felt a surge of disgust at the thought of seeing that annoying, dirty female again. He mentally prepared himself and was about to knock when the door opened from the inside. When Shen Tang saw the handsome man in front of her, she was stunned. She had never seen such a good-looking man in her life. Shen Yi saw her infatuated expression and felt even more disgusted. He was about to mock her, but suddenly realized something was off. The female in front of him was still fat and ugly, but she was much cleaner, without that long-standing foul odor. She even exuded a faint, clean scent. What the hell? This female actually took a bath. A hint of shock flashed in Shen Ye's eyes. He subconsciously looked inside the house and found that the garbage, previously swarming with insects, had also been cleaned up. He strongly suspected he had come to the wrong place. Shen Tang was also a little flustered by the man's unexpected visit. Do you need something? Shen Ye then snapped back to reality. He had come to warn Shen Tang to be cautious today. Recently, a large number of unknown polluted entities had appeared outside the city. They could even transform into Beastman forms, making them impossible to guard against. Many Beastmen had suffered greatly these past few days. She must wait until the information tower's horn sounded before going out. I know, thank you. Shen Tang's casual remark instantly stunned the man. This fat, lazy, malicious female actually said thank you to someone. He grew even more suspicious that he might be dreaming today. He said, "You're welcome," in a strange tone, gave Shen Tang a peculiar look, and then hurried away. Shen Tang closed the door and went back to sleep. At this moment, the system's broadcast sounded in her mind. Congratulations, host, for completing your first capture mission. Male lead Shen Ye's favorability increased by 10. Current aversion level 50. Reward: 1 beauty boosting paste. Please check it yourself. Shen Tang never expected the capture to be so simple. After all, she hadn't done anything. She had only said 2 sentences. According to the system's instructions, she applied the beauty boosting paste to her skin. After 8 hours, her skin would become delicate and smooth. The next morning, Shen Tang eagerly rushed to look in the mirror. She saw that many small pimples on her face and body had disappeared, and her skin had become much cleaner and fairer. Shen Tang was delighted. This was only using 1/3 of the paste, and the effect was quite satisfactory. She believed that after 2 more uses, her skin would definitely return to a normal person's state, but she couldn't rush it. According to the system's instructions, using it once every 3 days yielded the best results. Around 10 a.m., Shen Tang heard a melodious horn sound from outside. The information tower had released a safety signal to the Beastmen in the city. They could now move freely within the city. She had to find something to eat. There was nothing in the refrigerator except a bottle of nutrient solution. Resources were scarce here, and most Beastmen would not spend high prices to buy ingredients, only drinking nutrient solution to fill their stomachs. Shen Tang took only 1 sip and immediately spat it out. As a native Earthling, she really couldn't drink that stuff. Just as she arrived at the market, she heard disdainful jeers from behind her. Oh, who is this? Did Xiao Yan and the others abandon you? Do you have to come out and buy ingredients yourself? You're really disgracing us females. The person was Anbei, the city lord's daughter, who was very popular in the city because of her youth and beauty. But what she most desired were the original owner's 5 mates, so she would occasionally seize opportunities to gloat. Shen Tang didn't want to get into a conflict with her, so she pretended not to hear. Anbei saw this and gnashed her teeth in anger. This ugly fat hag still thinks she's a pampered princess from the palace? How dare she ignore me? Just as she was about to lash out, her eyes suddenly lit up and she immediately put on a gentle, shy, girlish expression. Brother Lu Xiao, you're back! Shen Tang's expression changed slightly when she heard that name. Lu Xiao was one of the original owner's mates whose beast form was a falcon. Despite being charged with a crime, he held the position of captain of the city patrol team. She turned around and saw an army lined up on both sides of the road. A particularly tall and imposing figure walked among them. The sunlight fell on his neat uniform, making him look exceptionally dazzling. As he passed by Shen Tang, his gaze did not linger on her for a moment. Anbei saw this scene and couldn't help herself. She didn't even bother to feign politeness anymore. She stepped forward and shoved Shen Tang hard. You unwanted ugly thing, if you know what's good for you, get a divorce quickly. Don't cling to Brother Lu Xiao. The surrounding passers-by also joined in the jeers. Exactly. How can such an ugly woman be worthy of Captain Lu Xiao? She's like a toad trying to eat swan meat. Shen Tang trembled with anger. She had never imagined being so humiliated in public. Meanwhile, Lu Xiao, who had already walked far away, suddenly heard a commotion behind him. He looked back and saw a group of people pointing at a female, their harsh words making him feel uncomfortable. Lu Xiao was not someone who meddled in others' affairs. He lifted his foot to leave, but when he heard the name Shen Tang, his heart suddenly jolted. He fixed his gaze on the fat female and scrutinized her again and again, then a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. To be honest, he had almost forgotten what his nominal mate looked like. He hadn't been home in a long time, only vaguely remembering Shen Tang as fat, ugly, and terribly messy. But the woman in front of him was much cleaner and tidier. At least, she didn't evoke disgust. His feet involuntarily walked towards her, and he reprimanded the onlookers to leave immediately. As the captain of the patrol team, Lu Xiao commanded great prestige. The onlookers scattered like mice in an instant. Enbei saw Lu Xiao approaching and felt a thrill in her heart. She quickly squeezed her voice and sweetly called out, "Brother Lu Xiao!" But the other party didn't even look at her. He walked straight towards Shentang. "What are you doing out here?" Shentang remembered the original owner's self-destructive behavior and bit her lip. "I want to buy some meat to eat. There's no food at home." Lu Xiao's brow furrowed when he heard this. He turned to look at the meat stalls and found that all the fresh meat had already been picked by the nobles, leaving only some scraps. The other patrol members also felt surprised. Although this ugly fat hag was indeed unpopular, she was, after all, a valuable female. Yet she was so hungry she had no food. Didn't she have a male at home to take care of her? Lu Xiao looked at his team members and ordered, "Give her the lean evolutionary meat we hunted today." He looked at Shentang. Her fat body, which would get winded after just 2 steps, made him pause. He then corrected himself, "Send it directly to her house." Shentang watched them really bring a large piece of fresh lean meat. A flicker of gratitude flashed in her eyes. "Thank you. When I've made the meat soup, I'll send you a portion." Lu Xiao's expression was strange. He didn't expect Shentang to respond so kindly, much less for her to spontaneously offer to send him meat soup. When did this woman become so good? But then he remembered the rumors of Shentang drugging Xiaoyan yesterday, and his expression instantly tightened. "No need. I still have patrol duties. I'm leaving." With that, he strode away with his team. Shentang felt inexplicable confusion. Why did this person change his mind faster than flipping a book? I can't find a way to get closer. I can't even show a little goodwill. How am I supposed to capture him? Anbei, who had been observing the entire time, had an extremely sour expression. Didn't they say Shentang and her mates had a terrible relationship? Why did this ugly, lazy woman get Lu Xiao's care? At this moment, the system's broadcast sounded in Shentang's mind. "Congratulations, host. Male lead Lu Xiao's favorability increased by 20. Current aversion level, 60. Reward, 1 slimming potion. Please check it yourself." Upon hearing the reward, Shentang was overjoyed, but she was afraid of being noticed by others. He immediately suppressed the curve of his lips. Lu Xiao sent a Beastman to deliver the fresh lean meat to Shentang's home. As soon as the Beastman left, Shentang eagerly took the slimming pill. The pill could help her lose 30 to 50 pounds depending on her physique, with a 10-minute activation time. In a short while, her skin secreted a lot of dark yellow oil. After she took a shower, she immediately felt much lighter. The system's voice chimed, "Congratulations, host. You have successfully lost 45 pounds. Appearance value +6. Shentang looked in the mirror. Due to the original owner's enormous size, a 40 to 50 pound weight loss didn't make a huge difference, but the layers of fat accumulated around her waist were no longer as exaggerated. Her stomach rumbled with hunger. The meat Lu Xiao sent was enough for her for a week. She cut a piece to make soup, storing the rest in the refrigerator. A while later, steam rose from the pot. She opened the lid and tasted a spoonful. Since she had no seasonings, she only added ordinary oil and salt. Although it was a bit bland, it was definitely much better than nutrient solution. After she had her fill, she ladled a few bowls into a thermos, preparing to deliver them to her mates. However, she felt a little uneasy. She thought of Xiaoyan. That man probably wanted to kill her now, and she didn't dare to see him. As for Lu Xiao, he should still be patrolling outside the city at this time. So, after some thought, she decided to go find the fox first. She walked through several streets before finally finding Shen Ye's house. After her mates fell out with the original owner, they all moved out of their shared residence and bought other properties. She stood at the door and nervously knocked, but there was no response for a long time. After hesitating for a moment, she directly pressed the eye scanner at the door. The original owner had permission to enter her mates' residences, so she didn't need a key to open the door. She pushed the door open and had just walked into the living room when she bumped into Shen Yi, who had just finished showering and only had a towel wrapped around his waist. He was using a towel to wipe his hair and froze instantly when he saw Shentang walk in. The man's damp red hair lay messily on his back, water droplets sliding over his chest. His broad shoulders and narrow waist showed strong, defined muscles. Shentang stared, momentarily mesmerized, and could even hear herself swallowing. Shen Yi glared, grinding his teeth, and roared, "Shentang, are you trying to die?" I'm going right now!" Shentang snapped back to reality and turned to run, panting heavily outside the door, her fat jiggling. She hadn't forgotten that the original owner used to frequently swoon over Shen Yi, often secretly peeking at him while he showered, relying on their sibling relationship, same father, same mother. If it weren't for her princess status protecting Shen Yi, he would have secretly killed her long ago. Not long after, a voice as cold as ice came from inside. "Come in." Shintang composed herself and pushed the door open. She saw that Shen Yi had wrapped himself up completely, guarding himself tightly against the notorious, lecherous female. Shintang twitched her lips at the sight. Was she that thirsty? She took out the thermos and spoke softly. "This is meat soup I made. I brought it for you to try." Shen Yi was instantly stunned. The sun must have risen from the west. This fat hag actually knows how to make soup? She's not trying to drug me again, is she? Shintang saw him not speaking and felt nervous, yet also a little hopeful. "Try it and see if it suits your taste. This is my first time cooking, so it might not be very good." A flicker of disgust passed through Shen Yi's eyes. Although he accepted the thermos, Shintang could tell he had no intention of eating it. Shintang didn't mind. Anyway, she had delivered it with warmth. It was his bad luck if he couldn't enjoy her cooking. After a moment's pause, she spoke again. "I actually came today to ask for a favor." Shen Yi's expression was as expected. His tone became more sarcastic. "What else do you want me to do for you now?" Shintang felt uncomfortable with his tone, but remembering that she was asking for a favor, she softened her voice. "I want to ask you to help me find some seasonings. I can't buy them in the city's market. I was wondering if you have any connections for that. As repayment, I'll send you a portion every time I make a new dish." Shen Yi was inwardly amazed. This fat hag used to lie around the house like a parasite every day, waiting for them to feed her. Has she changed her ways today? But, remembering the woman's previous self-destructive behavior, he felt it was impossible. It's not like in the palace where food in this polluted land is precious. This isn't for you to practice and waste. Shintang's eyes widened, indicating she was serious. Fearing he wouldn't believe her, she even opened the thermos, scooped a spoonful of soup, and offered it to him. "If you don't believe me, try it." The strong aroma of the meat made Shen Yi involuntarily salivate. Could this really be made by her? Before he could speak, Shintang urged, "Quick, try it. The soup will get cold." Shen Yi was confident that this female wouldn't dare to play tricks under his nose. If she really dared to drug him, he would send her to see the beast god on the spot. Shen Yi took only one taste, and a look of surprise quickly flashed in his eyes. The soup was rich, and the lean meat was stewed until tender and flavorful. He had also come from the palace. He had eaten dishes from all sorts of five-star chefs. But this meat soup was surprisingly not inferior to what the imperial chefs made. This made him even more certain that Shintang hadn't made it. If this fat hag could cook, then pigs could fly. He drank the entire pot of meat soup, leaving not a single drop, and still seemed to want more. "I'll help you find spices." He wanted to see with his own eyes what other tricks she could pull. Hearing this, Shintang smiled happily. But with just a smile, her crooked, rotten teeth were revealed, horribly ugly, making one want to pull them all out. Shen Yi turned his head away, full of disdain. "Close your mouth, it's disgusting." Shintang's mouth twitched in anger. How had she never noticed before that this fox was also so sharp-tongued? Shen Yi's gaze fell on Shintang's face again. He hadn't properly looked at the woman in front of him for a long time. Only now did he notice that the pimples on her face had diminished a bit. He wondered if it was just his imagination, but she also seemed to have lost a little weight. Thinking of this, his expression darkened again. He must be crazy. Why was he suddenly thinking about this fat hag? Shintang suddenly felt a chill, as if she were being watched by a wild beast. Shen Yi's gaze swept over her. As he walked away, he said dismissively, "Eat less from now on. If you get so fat one day that you can't walk, no one will carry you." Shintang gritted her teeth, cursing inwardly, "Can this dogman die if he talks less?" Fearing that this fox would literally make her die of anger, she quickly turned and left. As soon as she exited the room, the system notification sounded. Quote, "Congratulations, host. Male lead Shen Yi's favorability increased by 20. Shintang instantly beamed with joy. She hadn't expected that the annoying fox, who was disgusted by her, would still gain favorability. It seemed her cooking had conquered him. As long as she was diligent enough, she refused to believe she couldn't win over these 5 tough nuts to crack. Next, she was heading to the merman mate, Ryder's residence. He was a merman prince from the intermarriage between Landis and the Empire. Ryder had deliberately moved his residence to the northernmost part of the city to stay away from her, nearly 10 miles away. Shintang's legs were almost dead from the walk. This time, she didn't dare to trespass into someone's home again. She cautiously pressed the doorbell. The door was opened by an elegant and noble man with a cold and beautiful appearance, as perfect as an ancient Greek sculpture. However, his collar was disheveled, and a faint red mark could still be seen on his neck, as if he had just been through an intense affair. Shintang's expression changed slightly, but before she could speak, the other party spoke first with a look of disgust. "Who told you to come here?" "Dear, who are you talking to?" A coquettish voice came from behind the man. Then, a beautiful woman in a jade robe walked over. The woman was startled when she clearly saw Shen Tang's appearance. "Where did this scavenger come from? What are you doing standing at our door?" Then she clapped her head as if remembering something, her face full of false apology. "Oh right, I remember. You're Miss Shen Tang, Eli's wife, aren't you? I'm sorry, I thought you were a scavenger begging for food." Shen Tang's face was a little ugly. This was her mate! Why was he with another female? Ryder looked at Shen Tang with undisguised disgust. "Still not leaving? Do you want me to personally kick you out?" Shen Tang spoke with difficulty. "I came to find you." She tried to hand the thermos to the man, but he pushed her away as if he had seen a flood beast. Luckily, Shen Tang was heavy enough, or she would have fallen flat on her face. Ryder looked at her as if she were disgusting garbage. "Get lost! Don't let me see you again!" Ningwei, seeing this ridiculous scene, was secretly delighted. This ugly fat hag actually wants to compete with him for a man. What a pipe dream. "Eli, haven't you told him about our relationship yet?" Ryder sneered. "Does this prince need his permission to want other women?" You thought that seeing this fat hag completely abandoned by Ryder, he would no longer conceal his arrogance. "Ali has promised to marry me. If you know what's good for you, take half your property and sign this divorce agreement." The commotion also attracted whispers from onlookers. Does Shen Tang still have the nerve to question Prince Ryder? She should go look in a mirror. She's ugly and fat, how can she be worthy of Ryder? But she is Ryder's wife after all. Any female would be angry if this happened to them, right? I heard the merman's mating season is coming soon. Prince Ryder isn't looking for other females. Will he really mate with that fat hag? These malicious words provoked a burst of laughter from the crowd. Ryder felt even more disgraced hearing these words. Marrying this ugly fat hag was the greatest humiliation of his life. "The biggest regret of this prince's life is marrying you, you fat, ugly waste, and you dragged me down to this god-forsaken place. If you know what's good for you, quickly divorce me, so I can leave this cursed place." Shen Tang was used to all sorts of vicious curses. Now she was a, quote, dead pig not fearing boiling water. "I didn't mean to disturb you. I just made something and wanted to bring it for you to try." Ryder's expression darkened. This fat hag isn't trying to drug me and kill herself again, is she? Shen Tang didn't know what the man in front of her was thinking. She had just handed over the thermos when Ryder slapped it to the ground. The meat soup instantly spilled everywhere. "Don't you understand? Are you still trying to use those despicable methods against me? Do you think I'm as stupid as Xiaoyan?" Shen Tang's pent-up grievances from the past few days erupted. She bit her lip, suppressing her anger. "If you don't like it, fine. I won't bother you again." Ningwei quickly reminded him, "A lie. Quickly make her sign the divorce agreement." Ryder snapped back to attention and quickly opened the divorce agreement on his optical computer. This female has suffered such humiliation today. She definitely can't continue living like this. He thought the other party would compromise, but then he suddenly heard a cold laugh. "Ah, if you want a divorce, then kneel down and beg me." Ryder looked astonished, as if he couldn't believe his ears. The onlookers were also full of disbelief. This female actually dared to talk back? Shouldn't she be desperately trying to please Prince Ryder and make him change his mind? Shen Tang looked coldly at the despicable couple in front of her. So what if this man is her capture target? She's not a docile pushover without a temper. Why should she give him a good attitude again and again? "If you kneel down and beg me now, I'll sign this divorce agreement for you." At this moment, the system's warning sounded in her mind. "Host has violated capture rules. Male lead rider's aversion level is trending upwards. Host, please stop immediately." Shen Tang ignored it and continued to provoke him. "When you come to beg me, then I'll consider signing the divorce agreement for you. Otherwise, you'll never get rid of me, and don't even think about being intimate with your mistress." With that, she walked away, taking large strides in front of everyone. Instead of suffering internal distress, it was better to drive others crazy. Because she was so angry, her molars were almost shattered. This female actually dared to call him a mistress. Ryder, on the other hand, hadn't expected Shen Tang to really leave without further entanglement. It was as if she had become a completely different person, which left a strange, indescribable feeling in his heart. On her way back, Shen Tang felt completely relieved. This task of capturing men is really not suitable for a poisonous woman like her. The system emitted a buzzing electrical sound, mercilessly warning, "Host, don't forget, if you cannot capture the male leads, you will not be able to return to the present world." Heard this, Shen Tang's smile instantly froze. "Oh no," she thought. "I was just enjoying myself. That merman's favorability must have plummeted to negative." But unexpectedly, The system suddenly announced, "Congratulations, host. Male lead writer's favorability plus 3-0. Shentang was bewildered. She had made that arrogant merman lose face, and it actually increased his favorability? Could it be that that dogman likes being scolded? It seems I can't be too nice to him. The more rebellious I am, the more it will provoke his unwillingness." Shentang returned to her residence and used the beauty-boosting paste again before going to bed. The next morning, she eagerly rushed to the mirror. The pimples on her face were almost invisible from a distance, and her skin was even fairer and cleaner. Although she still had issues with large pores and blackheads, overall, she was considered an ordinary woman with relatively poor skin. Shentang was delighted to see the changes on her face, and her resentment also vanished without a trace. But touching the mountain-like fat on her belly, she still sighed, so she started running around the streets every morning and evening. Passersby looked at her with curious gazes, as if seeing a street performer. What's wrong with this fat hag? Why is she running around aimlessly here in the morning? Strange, haven't you noticed? This fat hag doesn't seem as ugly as before. She's not as repulsive to look at. When Shen Yi walked by, he heard whispers around him. He couldn't help but frown. I heard Shentang and Ryder had a big fight yesterday. Could it be that after this stimulation, she's really determined to lose weight? Shentang ran, panting and sweating profusely. The system suddenly prompted, "Congratulations, host. Male lead, Shen Yi's favorability plus 1-0. Current aversion level, 20. Shentang looked up and saw Shen Yi walking towards her. "The spices you asked me to find for you. See if these are them. MSG, Sichuan peppercorns, and natural spices. Although these were basic seasonings, they were quite complete." Shentang lowered her head to examine the seasonings, not noticing the hint of surprise in Shen Yi's eyes. It's only been 2 days, and this female's facial pimples have almost cleared up. He was puzzled, but didn't ask further. Shentang planned to fulfill her promise and invite him to eat a meal at her home. Shen Yi remembered the meat soup from that day, which was so delicious that he couldn't forget it. Later, he searched for chefs all over the city, but couldn't find that taste. He was about to nod in agreement, but suddenly received an urgent notification from his team and had to leave in a hurry. It turned out that the city lord had issued a mobilization order, requiring all beastmen in the city to gather because the teams sent out of the city some time ago had been unreachable and might have met with misfortune. The city lord decided to personally lead a team out of the city for rescue. Just then, the system suddenly released a task. "Congratulations, host. You have triggered a side quest. Accompany the army to the contaminated zone. Complete the quest to receive a reward. Restore mental power." At the city gate, nearly 1,000 Beastman warriors were already assembled and ready to depart. Armored vehicles and fighter jets were parked not far away, and a tense and solemn atmosphere permeated everywhere. Shentang frowned slightly after arriving. The task issued by the system must be related to the male leads. Could it be that her mates have encountered misfortune outside the city? She approached and found that only 3 of her mates were present. Ryder saw Shentang approach, and a strong look of disgust flashed in his eyes. He snorted coldly and stood up, walking away in large strides. Next to him was a tall beastman with long silver hair. Shentang recognized him as the original owner's snakemate, Shu Changju. He didn't even bother to give her a proper look. In comparison, only Shen Yi's attitude towards her was slightly better. He frowned when he saw her approach. What does this female want? The beastmen present whispered among themselves. The city lord only allows females with mental power of sea level or above to accompany the army. Male beastmen fighting in contaminated areas for a long time are very prone to mental agitation, and only female mental power can provide comfort. What is this useless Shentang who has no mental power doing here? The city lord's gaze swept over Shentang, his expression heavy. He glared at her. "Get out of here! This is not a place for fooling around." Shentang ignored these mocking words. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I want to accompany the army." The city lord's disgust deepened. "Do you know where we're going this time? If you don't leave now, don't blame me for calling people to remove you." Shentang quickly spoke. "I know. You're going to the B405 contaminated zone to find the missing teams." The city lord's eyes flashed with surprise. He had thought this female was trying to cause trouble again, but he didn't expect her to be prepared. However, he immediately frowned again. "You know, and you still dare to follow? That's a level 1 contaminated zone. Weaklings will be swallowed whole, leaving no bones. You don't even have mental power. Following us will only make you a burden. No one will care if you live or die on the battlefield." Shentang ignored his sarcastic remarks and only sincerely stated, "Just let me follow. Don't worry about me if I encounter danger." The city lord pondered for a moment. "Then you can follow. Everyone must sign a death waiver before going." If you die, there won't even be anyone to collect your body. The city lord didn't actually intend for Shen Tang to go. If the imperial princess really died, he would have trouble explaining it. He just didn't want to be pestered at such a critical moment. He thought Shen Tang would be scared off by the death waiver, but to his surprise, she signed her name readily. Chen Ye, Ryder, and Su Kangju all felt surprised when they saw her sign the death waiver. This female is very afraid of death. What's gotten into her today that she insists on coming along? Half an hour later, the team began to move. Flying beastmen transformed into their beast forms and went ahead to scout. The other beastmen rode in armored vehicles and fighter jets. Among the thousands of people, only a dozen females came. They were assigned 2 separate armored personnel carriers, and Shen Tang was in one of them. The last person to get on the vehicle was Anbei, the city lord's daughter. Even though there were empty seats across the aisle, she deliberately walked up to Shen Tang to provoke her. "Can you move over? There aren't enough seats already, and your big butt takes up 3 people's space, leaving us nowhere to sit." "Exactly, exactly," a follower echoed repeatedly. "Did you smell a sour, sweaty odor? Who hasn't showered in days? It stinks. The fatter you are, the more you sweat. This Shen Tang never showers. It must be her." Shen Tang's plump physique made her sweat profusely with every movement, but she had just showered that morning. She was certain there was no strange odor coming from her. Those people were clearly deliberately ostracizing her. Seeing her not speak, these people became even more arrogant. "That fat pig, can you get off and run alongside the car? That way you can lose weight too." "Ha ha ha, that's a great idea." Soon, a roar of laughter erupted in the carriage. But at this moment, Shen Tang suddenly stood up, startling the group of females. She looked down at the foxtribe female who had spoken earlier. "You were the one who suggested I get off the car, right?" She was already ugly, and the twitching flesh on her face made her look even more fierce and evil, frightening that female until her face turned pale, stammering, I was just kidding." Shen Tang then coldly swept her gaze across the other people in the carriage. The original owner was tall, fat, and strong. Standing there, she was like a small hill, exuding immense pressure. The other females in front of her were like weak little chicks. "Let me see who else is disgusted by whom. Say one more word, and this old lady will kick you out. It's very spacious outside." The females were instantly choked into silence, not daring to speak. Even Anbei felt a hint of fear. If this ugly monster really went crazy, with her 300 to 400 pounds, one punch could send them into a pit. Which of these fragile females could withstand that? So everyone in the carriage obediently shut their mouths. Shen Tang's ears finally found peace. It seemed that dealing with this group of people required fighting evil with evil. As the vehicle gradually went deeper, the scenery outside slowly changed. The wilderness was lush, but rarely saw living animals. A faint gray mist permeated the air. Shen Tang felt a little uneasy. Just then, the system's voice sounded, "Congratulations, host, you have completed the side quest. Accompany the army to the B405 contaminated zone. Mental power restoration has automatically taken effect." At this moment, a roar that shook the mountains suddenly came from not far away. A horde of zombies was besieging a lone Black Panther. The Black Panther was like a killing machine, tearing the pouncing zombies to shreds. But as the battle continued, his mind became increasingly chaotic, and the scene in front of him gradually began to distort. At this time, several armored vehicles broke through the mist and stopped at the edge of the battlefield. The doors quickly opened, and several beastmen in white uniforms jumped out. "Medical team, we found Xiaoyan, go rescue him!" However, a fierce glint flashed in the Black Panther's eyes. He suddenly turned and let out a roar at the approaching medical team. "Damn it, Xiaoyan has lost his mind," someone shouted in horror. More beastmen jumped out of the armored vehicles, trying to subdue the Black Panther, but they were helpless against Xiaoyan in his berserk state. Just as the situation was about to spiral out of control, several fighter jets flew low, quickly dropping several electronic capture nets. The nets flashed with blue electric light, accurately covering the Black Panther's body. The current instantly coursed through his flesh, but it did not successfully electrocute him into unconsciousness, only making the Black Panther even more agitated. A strange black mist entwined his body. It was the physical manifestation of mental agitation, almost consuming him. The females in the carriage were already trembling with fear. At this moment, the system's broadcast sounded in Shen Tang's mind. "Host has triggered a side quest. Help male lead Xiaoyan overcome mental agitation. Complete the quest to receive a reward. Slimming pill." Shen Tang was surprised. It was Xiaoyan outside. She didn't have time to think and quickly got out of the car. Everyone present surrounded the Black Panther. Even Shen Ye and Ryder were there, their faces all showing despair, as if they had seen their own tragic future. Ryder strode over and roared at Shen Tang. You still have the nerve to show up. If it weren't for you, Xiaoyan wouldn't have become like this. Shen Tang was confused. What did this have to do with her? She learned from the system that male beastmen fighting in contaminated areas for a long time would trigger mental agitation, and the longer the time, the more severe the mental agitation. Shen Tang had never provided mental comfort to her 5 mates, which led to Xiaoyan losing control and becoming a beast. The city lord looked at the trapped Black Panther, his expression extremely grim. Xiaoyan was a powerful S-level beastman. To provide him with mental comfort, at least an A-level female was needed. Shen Tang, needless to say, was a useless person who had lost her mental power. The strongest mental power among the females present, Anbei, was only B-level. The city lord naturally didn't want his daughter to take risks. A completely berserk beastman would be even more terrifying than a contaminated species. They could only be forcibly euthanized. Anbei saw through the city lord's thoughts and quickly cried out to stop him. Dad, you can't hurt Xiaoyan. Let me try. Xiaoyan was her favorite male, and he absolutely couldn't die. The city lord roared in frustration. Nonsense, he's already like this. Don't go and cause more trouble for me. He knew his daughter's feelings for Xiaoyan. Coveting a male with 7 mates was indeed disgraceful, but he privately recognized Xiaoyan's strength. If he could really win him over, it would be a huge help. So usually, he would turn a blind eye, but Xiaoyan was now more dangerous than a contaminated creature. This was no laughing matter. Dad, believe me, let me try. Anbei was confident that if she could successfully soothe Xiaoyan's mental agitation, when the man woke up, he would willingly submit to her. Shen Ye and the others would also definitely become interested in her and become her loyal followers. Thinking of that scene, Anbei was extremely excited. Taking a little risk was worth it. Shen Tang frowned and looked at the Black Panther not far away. If this dragged on, he would either die from mental agitation or be shot to death. Let me do it! Shen Tang's sudden remark made the entire scene fall silent. Anbei sarcastically said, what can a useless person like you do? Only I can save him now. You'd better stand there and not move. Don't interfere with my business. Shen Tang didn't bother to explain much and walked straight towards the Black Panther. The beastmen and females were surprised, and the city lord also frowned tightly. But the next second, a hint of darkness flashed in his eyes, and he didn't send anyone to stop her. If this princess was looking for death herself, he couldn't stop her. If this troublesome female died, his daughter would have a chance to win over those mates. Why not? Anbei stomped her foot in anger. This useless person actually dared to say she was in the way, but she didn't dare to rush forward recklessly either. She had witnessed the horror of a berserk beastman. This useless person would definitely be torn to shreds if she went over, which would be good for testing the waters. The tranquilizer on the Black Panther took effect, and he lay on the ground, temporarily losing his ability to resist. But the moment Shen Tang approached, he suddenly got up and pounced on her, knocking her to the ground. The crowd instantly erupted in chaos. The tranquilizer is actually useless against high-level berserk beastmen. Shen Tang is dead for sure now. Anbei's eyes flashed with schadenfreude, wishing the Black Panther would quickly bite off Shen Tang's neck. But the next second, everyone present showed shocked expressions. The scene of blood and gore did not appear. Instead, a white light emerged from Shen Tang's palm, slowly dispelling the black mist wrapped around the Black Panther's body. This is mental power. Shen Ye, Ryder, and Shui Kengju looked at the white light emanating from her palm, and the disgust or amusement on their faces quickly subsided. At this moment, Shen Tang's will to survive reached its peak, and she desperately concentrated her mental power. She was not from this world, and had never used mental power before. She thought it would be very slow, but unexpectedly, her mental movements were effective in the competition. Shen Tang increased the output of her mental power, and the black mist clinging to the Black Panther became lighter and lighter. After the black mist completely disappeared, the Black Panther also lost all his strength and fainted on the ground. Shen Tang seemed to see the Black Panther looking at her deeply before losing consciousness, though she didn't know if he had regained his sanity. The military doctor checked the Black Panther's physical condition and was overjoyed. Xiaoyan's agitation level had actually dropped to normal. Originally, his mental agitation had exceeded 90, and even with an A-level female's comfort, it would have been irreversible unless there was an S-level female. But Shen Tang, this useless person, hadn't she lost her mental power long ago? Could it be that her mental power has recovered? Anbei stared at Shen Tang with venomous eyes. This is absolutely impossible. It must be some trick this ugly monster Shen Tang pulled. As soon as Shen Tang got up, she heard the system's broadcast in her mind. Congratulations, host. Rider's favorability plus 1.5. Shue Kangju's favorability plus 1.9. Shenyi's favorability has skyrocketed and has now moved beyond aversion. Current favorability, 10. Reward, skin repair cream. Before Shentang could even be happy, her vision went black and she collapsed. Shen Yi, who was closest, quickly helped her into his arms. He turned to look at the approaching military doctor. What's wrong with her? His voice contained a hint of tension that even he didn't notice. The doctor examined Shentang. The female's physique is too weak. Excessive use of mental power has led to physical exhaustion. She'll be fine after some nutrient solution and rest. Ryder just felt that this fat hag was getting what she deserved. She's still dragging her feet about getting a divorce. She's a lustful but incompetent idiot. I told her to eat less, and she can even faint from using a bit of mental power. What a weakling. All right, say less and take her to the medical room, Shen Yi frowned. No matter what, they are Shentang's mates. We can't let anything happen to her. Ryder's eyes filled with disdain. You carry her. I can't lift someone this fat. With that, he turned and left. Su Kangju glanced indifferently at the unconscious Shentang, said nothing, and then instantly disappeared. Shen Yi gritted his teeth and cursed the two of them under his breath. He picked up the unconscious Shentang and hurried to the medical room. It was a good thing he was a strong and robust Six Realms male. Otherwise, he really couldn't have carried this 300-pound fat hag. An hour later, Shentang slowly woke up. The system's voice promptly sounded. Congratulations, host. You have successfully completed the side quest. Help male Li Xiaoyan overcome mental agitation. Reward, 1 slimming pill. Shentang was about to happily take it when she received a message that the city lord wanted to see her. At this time, the city lord held a gray gold stone in his hand. This was used to test female mental power. His face showed deep thought and ruthlessness. If this princess had truly recovered S-level divine power, that would be a major event that would shake the entire nation. One must know that only 3 S-level females had appeared in the Empire's history. Now that the princess was in his hands, she naturally became his bargaining chip. If he used her to threaten the Empire, it might help him leave this contaminated land. Although he thought this internally, his face still maintained a kind and amiable expression. Shentang, your successful act of saving Xiaoyan was witnessed by all the Beastmen present. I know you've suffered a lot of grievances this past year, but as long as you recover your mental power, everyone will respect and adore you. Shentang nodded and said nothing. Of course, she didn't know the City Lord's hidden thoughts. However, after the test, her mental power only showed as C-level. This made the City Lord's face full of disbelief. After all, she had saved an S-level Beastman who was on the verge of collapse, which only a legendary S-level mental power could achieve. At least it should have been A-level mental power, but Shentang was only C-level. How is this possible? But the testing stone wouldn't make mistakes. In the end, he could only guess that perhaps it was just Shentang's last burst of energy before her mental power completely disappeared. After leaving the tent, Shentang also asked the system in confusion, "Didn't you say my mental power had recovered? Why is it only C-level?" The system's mechanical voice sounded in her mind. "Host, please do not trust anyone. This is the city of sin and exile. These desperate people will betray you for profit. However, a female with S-level mental power, if without the ability to protect herself, will become a prize to be fought over by various forces. The city lord harbors ill intentions. He must not know the host's true level." Shentang suddenly understood. "So, you deliberately concealed my mental power level?" "Yes. I can modify the display results during mental tests. However, the host does not currently possess S-level mental power. Because the host's mental power was damaged abnormally, it will take a long time to recover. The specific reason can only be found by returning to the Empire." Shentang didn't dwell on this issue for too long. She returned to the makeshift shelter and took the slimming pill. After her body expelled the oil, she took a shower. "Congratulations, host. You have lost 41 pounds, charm value plus 6. Although the weight loss was not as much as the first time, from a visual perspective, the change in her figure was more noticeable this time. However, with rapid weight loss in a short period, her skin's elasticity couldn't keep up. Shentang found that the skin on her arms and belly had become very loose. Following the system's prompt, she used the previously rewarded skin repair cream. The repair cream's effect time was very short. After just a few minutes, the loose skin on her body became firm again. Shentang was quite satisfied with her current situation, except that her weight of 239 pounds was still too clumsy. She had to find a way to get more slimming pills. It was late at night. Beastmen who had finished a day of fighting were most eager for female comfort. Most females slept with their mates, but Shen Tang was self-aware and didn't disturb Shen Ye and the others. However, when she turned her head, she saw Ryder leaning against a tree not far away. Shen Tang thought she was dreaming. She ran out and asked, "Why are you here?" The young man tilted his head and looked at her. "It's my patrol tonight. I just came here to see if you were dead." Shen Tang's mouth twitched. This man's words are really unpleasant. What? So if I die, you can find the next one? This fish was always talking about divorce. Shen Tang suddenly remembered him and that mistress, so she couldn't help but curl her lips in sarcasm. "Didn't you want to divorce me before, facing the public? Have you thought it through today? Do you want to find a deserted place to kneel and beg me?" Ryder sneered, not provoked. The next moment, he suddenly moved closer and pinched her chin. "How did I suddenly find you've gotten thinner?" He stared at her, scrutinizing her again and again, confirming that he hadn't seen wrong. This fat hag had indeed gotten thinner, and her skin had become firm and smooth. Did she get liposuction? She was so ugly before, but tonight she looks much more pleasing to the eye. Recalling the changes that had occurred in this fat hag over the past few days, it made him somewhat bewildered. Ryder couldn't deny that he had indeed developed a hint of curiosity towards this fat hag. Because they were so close, Shen Tang could smell the fresh ocean scent on the young man, which made her feel a little dizzy. This person used to find her disgusting, even to look at, but today he actually touched her voluntarily, and there were even subtle hints of other intentions. Shen Tang slapped his hand away and then tried to leave. She hadn't found a good reason to explain her changes, but sometimes a mystery without an answer is more attractive. When a man becomes curious about a woman, he is not far from falling for her. Congratulations, host. Ryder's favorability plus 2-0. Hearing the system's broadcast, Shen Tang's mouth twitched slightly. This merman is truly obsessed with looks. Such an important event as her awakening mental power only added 15 favorability, but a slight improvement in her appearance directly added 20. She wiped her face and planned to go find Xiaoyan, but unexpectedly, she met Shen Yi halfway. Shen Yi's gaze fell on her, and a hint of surprise also appeared in his eyes, but he didn't ask much. Instead, he handed her an off-white crystal. "What is this?" Shen Tang hadn't expected Shen Yi to give her a gift. It seemed he had come specifically to find her. Shen Yi's tone hadn't changed much. "You'll know after you take it. This thing was originally meant for you, but before..." He glanced at Shen Tang and didn't continue. Shen Tang understood what he meant. The original owner was extravagant and would squander good things, turning them into gambling debts the next day. From the system, she learned that this white crystal was for nourishing mental power and was a rare, good item. Shen Tang wasn't pretentious and swallowed the crystal whole. The crystal instantly transformed into a warm current, melting into her limbs and organs. Her mental power also increased from 1% to 5%. It wasn't a huge increase, but it was a pleasant surprise. Before she could even thank him, Shen Yi asked first, "When did your mental power recover? Why did you never tell us?" Shen Tang casually made up an excuse. "I vaguely felt it these past 2 days. I didn't expect it to actually recover, but it's only sea level. It might just be a temporary recovery before it completely disappears." Shen Yi had heard about her test, but at least it was stronger than before. He looked at Shen Tang's face and suddenly noticed that her pimples were almost gone, and she had lost some weight. Her facial features didn't seem as crowded anymore, and she looked much more pleasing to the eye. Even he didn't realize that his tone towards Shen Tang was no longer as cold. "I didn't expect you to voluntarily step forward and save Xiaoyan today. This crystal is my thank you." The implication was for her not to overthink it. "You are my mates. Providing you with mental comfort is what I should do." Hearing this, Shen Ye was instantly stunned. He had already been suspicious of Shen Tang's changes these past few days, and now he looked at her with a hint of meaningful scrutiny. One must know that a berserk beastman is extremely dangerous. Even if Shen Tang's mental power had truly recovered, there was still a risk of injury. This fat hag had always been afraid of death, yet today she resolutely saved Zhao Yan, and she even said these words tonight. Did she take the wrong medicine, or has she truly changed? As he pondered, Shen Tang then threw out another sentence. "I can help you comfort your mental power, but then again, I'm not helping for free," I said. "You have to give me all the points you get from hunting contaminated species." A hint of sarcasm flashed in Shen Ye's eyes, thinking, sure enough, I knew this female had an agenda. Seeing his wary expression, Shen Tang quickly explained, "Don't worry, I won't use your points for gambling. I just want to take you all away from this cursed place." The females in the city were all criminals who had committed offenses. If they wanted to leave this wretched place, they had to earn enough atonement points. Generally, the mate's points were counted towards the female's account, but there was no law mandating it. Shen Ye and the others had unbound their accounts from the original owner 3 months ago. If she relied on herself, she wouldn't earn enough points in 8 lifetimes. However, Shen Yi refused very directly, his voice cold and ruthless. Don't even think about it. Do you think I'd still trust you? Shen Tang wasn't surprised by the rejection. After all, the original owner's rotten reputation was deeply ingrained in people's minds. Anyway, there's still plenty of time. No need to rush. Meanwhile, Xiao Yan woke up with a splitting headache. Memories of his berserk period were fragmented. He had thought he was doomed this time. Even if he didn't die from a mental breakdown, he would certainly be shot by the army. As the youngest major general of the empire, ending up like this was a huge joke. And all of this was because of that female, Shen Tang. Xiaoyan admitted that a monstrous hatred had grown within him for her. He even wished he could drag her down with him. But as he gradually sobered up and the fragmented memories in his mind slowly reassembled, he was instantly stunned. It was that fat hag Shen Tang who had provided him with mental comfort. But hadn't she lost her mental power long ago? Could it be that her mental power had recovered? But even if she still had mental power, why would that malicious female be kind enough to comfort him? He had always disdained bonding with females, looking at those males who stooped low to seek female comfort with heartfelt contempt. Previously, during mental agitations in the Empire, he had always endured by taking inhibitors. However, there were no inhibitors in this place of exile. This time, it was also his first time experiencing mental comfort from a female after being injured. Recalling that feeling, his scalp tingled with comfort. It was even more satisfying than doing that kind of thing. But when Shen Tang's ugly fat face appeared in his mind, his expression immediately became as ugly as if he had eaten excrement. He was truly insane to even think about it again. Forget kissing her. Just looking at that ugly face made him want to vomit. There would definitely not be a second time. On the other side, the system suddenly prompted, "Target Xiaoyan's favorability updated. Has exited the blackening stage. Current aversion value is 90. Will not harbor killing intent towards the host. Reward, 1 bottle of insecticide." What is insecticide for? Shen Tang thought. I don't grow flowers or vegetables. This isn't just any insecticide. Host will know soon enough, the system said evasively. Shen Tang didn't pay too much attention. After learning that Xiaoyan wouldn't lay a hand on her, she confidently entered the medical room. From a distance, she saw the man sitting on the hospital bed, with bandages wrapped around the wound on his arm, giving off an indescribable sense of coldness. Xiaoyan heard the movement at the door and curled his lips into a smile when he saw it was Shen Tang. You still have the guts to come before me? Shen Tang swallowed hard and tried to be polite. No matter what, I'm your savior. You can't really kill me, can you? Hearing this, the man snorted disdainfully. That face of yours is really becoming less and less valuable. Don't forget who drugged me. This was a mess Shen Tang couldn't wash herself clean of. It was something the original owner had done, so she could only acknowledge it. I was too impulsive that day, I'm sorry. I promise this kind of thing will never happen again in the future. Xiaoyan frowned and stared at her. This fat hag actually knows how to apologize. The sun must have risen from the west. The next moment, he reached out and firmly gripped her jaw. Haven't seen you for a few days. What new tricks have you learned? Shen Tang was almost out of breath, cursing this violent man inwardly. I'm truly sorry. Xiaoyan was about to mock her a few more times when he suddenly discovered something interesting. He leaned closer to her face, pinching her chin and moving it from side to side. Strange, where are those disgusting pus-filled pimples on your face? He suddenly noticed that this fat hag looked different from his memory. He felt like her face wasn't as ugly, and she had lost a lot of weight. He could even vaguely see some body curves. Let go of me! Being arbitrarily scrutinized by the man's aggressive gaze, Shen Tang felt her dignity insulted. She opened her mouth and bit hard into the web of his hand. You crazy fat hag! Xiaoyan cried out in pain and quickly let go. Shen Tang took the opportunity to run towards the door. But the next second, Xiaoyan flashed in front of her, blocking her way. His face was gloomy, and he grabbed her neck again with such force that it almost crushed her bones. Shen Tang's eyes widened in fear. Didn't they say Xiaoyan had come out of the blackening stage? Is he still holding a grudge? What do you want to do to me? Harming a female is illegal. Don't worry, your little life can still be saved to see tomorrow's sun. Xiaoyan looked at her face, and a look of disdain appeared in his eyes. A bit ugly, but still useful. I can keep her alive for now. This implied that once she no longer had any use, he would immediately end her life. Shen Tang's chest heaved violently with anger. I'm your official mate. How dare this guy treat her like this? Xiao Yan curled his lips into a malicious smile. You? Trying to tame me? With that, he instantly teleported to a nearby hillside. Shen Tang's body was suspended in the air. As long as Xiao Yan let go, she would fall to the ground. Shen Tang screamed in terror, desperately hugging Xiao Yan's arm, her greasy fat body pressing against him. Xiao Yan's forehead throbbed with disgust. He gritted his teeth and roared, "Let go quickly!" But Shen Tang clung to him like an octopus, impossible to shake off. Just as the two were in a stalemate, Xiao Yan suddenly narrowed his eyes and looked ahead. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he quickly retreated, letting go of Shen Tang. Shen Tang, freed from his grasp, immediately ran back. But the next second, Xiao Yan pulled her back. "Quiet, fat hag! Don't run around if you don't want to die." At the same time, the black aura above his head vigilantly searched for surrounding movements. Shen Tang instantly held her breath, thinking, could it be that some contaminated creatures are approaching? If it can make Xiao Yan so wary, its level probably isn't low. Those contaminated creatures looked just like zombies. Relatively speaking, this dogman Xiao Yan was still better looking, so Shen Tang cautiously moved her fat body closer to him. Xiao Yan noticed her small movement and instantly showed extreme disgust. "Get away from me! Otherwise, I'll throw you out to feed the contaminated creatures!" Shen Tang couldn't help but roll her eyes, but fearing that this dogman would actually throw her out, she reluctantly moved backward. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yan became even more impatient. "Are you stupid? Get back here! So far away from me, do you want to become contaminated creatures' food? Didn't you tell me to stay away from you?" Shen Tang mumbled softly. So hard to please. She then maintained a distance that was neither too close nor too far. The gray mist in the forest grew thicker, and suddenly, dense red eyes appeared in the distance, followed by an overwhelming swarm of zombies and mutated insects rushing over. Seeing this, Xiao Yan quickly drew his pistol and fired a flare. With a sharp whoosh, the flare cut through the night sky and exploded in the darkness. The resting beastmen were startled awake and rushed out of their tents, fully armed and ready for battle. In just a blink of an eye, the zombie horde had surrounded the camp, blocking every escape route. Xiao Yan was the first to charge forward. Shen Yi and Ryder also quickly joined the battle. Among them, Shui Kangju's ability attracted Shen Tang's attention. Black mist slowly rose from his body, then condensed into hundreds of venomous snakes that pounced on the zombie horde. Wherever the venomous snakes passed, the zombies were instantly devoured, completely, leaving only ashes on the ground. But there were simply too many of these things. Some of them slipped through, breaking through the defense line and invading the camp. Shen Tang couldn't find a suitable hiding place for a moment. In a panic, she climbed towards a nearby large tree. The mutated insects were getting closer and closer to her. Shen Tang twisted her fat body and desperately climbed up the tree. The scene looked comical and ridiculous. Fortunately, the camp was currently under attack, and no one spared her a second glance. Shen Tang's hands turned into sharp claws gripping the rough tree trunk, and she actually grunted and groaned her way up. Fortunately, the original owner was a cat tribe beastman and had some talent for climbing trees. When she reached the top of the tree, she was panting heavily, lying on a thick branch. But when she looked down, she was so scared she almost fell off. How is it so high? It was at least 30 or 40 meters, she estimated. She couldn't believe she had climbed it herself. Shen Tang wanted to cry without tears. She had acrophobia now. How was she going to climb down later? Because it was high enough, she had a clear view of the battlefield. Xiao Yan and the others had almost cleared out the zombies from the periphery. Many beastmen ran back to the camp to clear out any stragglers and heal. At the same time, some personnel were dispatched to protect the females. Shen Tang didn't notice that a mutated snake, smelling the scent of living beings, was slowly climbing up the tree trunk. Once it entered attack range, the mutated snake opened its bloody maw and lunged at Shen Tang. But the next second, an even larger and more menacing white snake appeared and swallowed the mutated snake in one bite. Shen Tang heard the commotion, turned her head, and almost fell off the tree when she saw the white snake behind her. Shui Kangju saw the fear in the female's eyes, and a hint of sarcasm flashed in his snake eyes. Truly foolish. Can't even tell if it's a beastman. Shen Tang, prompted by the system, then realized that this was her snake mate, Shui Kangju. A mutated snake had just tried to attack her, and then Shui Kangju swallowed it. Shen Tang finally let out a sigh of relief. "So it was you! Thank you for saving me." Zhu Kangju's gaze fell on Shen Tang. She was curled up in fear, her body of fat making her look even fatter and uglier. "Don't flatter yourself. I didn't save you." He said this half-truthfully. because his innate ability allowed him to devour all things in the world and turn them into his own power. Contaminated creatures were also on his menu. So it wasn't wrong to say he just helped her out on a whim. When Shentang wanted to speak again, the white snake had already slithered down the tree trunk and disappeared into the night. Shentang pursed her lips. Frankly, among her mates, Xiaoyan had the highest aversion, but the one she feared most was Zhai Kangju. Xu Kangji was a slave, a living corpse who had been forcibly taken as a mate by the original owner due to his powerful strength, used as a life-saving trump card. Although Su Kangju was of humble origin, he was ambitious. How could he willingly serve an ugly fat woman as his mistress? But bound by the contract, he had to act when she faced a fatal danger. Normally, he was nowhere to be seen. The capture difficulty was extremely high. System, keep an eye out for me. If there's any danger, tell me immediately. Okay, host. However, Su Kangju just went down and ate all the surrounding contaminated creatures. The host's current safety probability is 99%. Shentang nodded and continued to watch the evolution of the battlefield. All the zombies had been cleared. What remained was the troublesome swarm of mutated insects. The insect swarm's strength was not strong, but their reproduction speed was extremely fast. At this moment, Shentang suddenly remembered the bottle of insecticide that the system had rewarded her with. The insects you mentioned, are they these insects? Precisely. The high-efficiency insecticide produced by the system can clear over 96% of the mutated insect species in the apocalypse. Host, please use it carefully. Shentang understood somewhat, but quickly, her eyes flashed with deep thought again. Human nature is selfish. Most of these beastmen are hungry, and now, with only this bottle of insecticide in my hand, it's best kept as a trump card for self-preservation. There's no need to take it out now, and it could easily cause unnecessary trouble. The smoke of battle had disappeared somewhere, and Shen Ye and the others were still fighting hard. Shentang was a bit conflicted about whether to use the insecticide. Her mission was to conquer the male leads, and the male leads certainly couldn't die. Just then, she suddenly opened her eyes wide in shock. A fiery red figure appeared on the battlefield. Shen Ye transformed into his true form, a magnificent crimson tiger, completely red, as if shrouded in flames, full of mystery and noble texture, completely out of place with everything around him. The beastmen and female stars present were all dumbfounded, and those swarms of insects scattered and fled, as if they had seen something terrifying. The crimson tiger strode elegantly, spraying a ball of flame from his center, burning all the insects and their eggs to ashes. Morale of the crowd instantly soared, and they successfully repelled the insect swarm in one go. At this moment, Xiaoyan also returned. He carried a large, bloody, messy something and threw it on the ground. His right hand transformed into a sharp claw, fiercely digging out a purple-gold core from its abdomen. Finally, he set the corpse on fire, burning it to ashes. This was the instigator of this farce, an S-class mutated pet. Only by completely killing it would the insect swarm stop reproducing. At this moment, Ande walked over, looking at Xiaoyan with adoration in her eyes. Brother Xiaoyan, you're so amazing. If it weren't for you and Shenyan today, we probably wouldn't have made it out of here alive. Xiaoyan looked at her fawning expression, a cold smile on his lips. Flattery is unnecessary. I don't like hearing it. If you have that much concern, you should worry more about your own mates. After speaking, he turned and left. But as he walked under a tree, he suddenly heard someone desperately calling his name in a faint voice. Xiaoyan, help! Xiaoyan followed the sound and looked up at the treetop. When he saw Shentang in the tree, his mouth twitched. Holy crap, how did this fat hag climb so high? At the same time, he found it somewhat inconceivable. With this fat hag's 300 jin weight, how did she climb up there? Shentang whimpered softly, feeling wronged. Do you think I wanted to climb this high? If I didn't hide here, those insects would have devoured me long ago. Other females had their mates protecting them closely, but she could only fend for herself. Xiaoyan coldly urged, Get down quickly, the team is about to leave. We don't have time to wait for you. Shentang looked down and almost fainted. Her voice trembled. No, I have acrophobia. Xiaoyan saw her cowardly appearance, and the impatience in his eyes slightly subsided. Didn't this fat hag used to be quite bold? She's really a troublesome fellow. He spread his arms, a playful smile on his face. Close your eyes and jump down. I'll catch you. Shentang's mouth twitched at the sight. She knew this dogman was deliberately teasing her. If she jumped from that height and he didn't catch her, she'd be dead. Just then, Shen Ye and the others also came over. Seeing Shentang so high up in the tree, Shen Ye turned his head to stare at Xiaoyan, thinking he was playing a trick on Shentang. Xiaoyan let out a cold laugh. If he really wanted to get revenge on this fat hag, he wouldn't do something so childish. Don't look at me like that. I didn't do anything. She's just stupid. She climbed up and can't get down. Su Kang-jiu and the other two were all shocked. How did this fat hag climb up there? But now was not the time to worry about such things. The important thing was to save her first. They couldn't just leave her there to fend for herself. Shen Yi dragged over a thick cushioning mat and gestured for Shen Tang to jump down. But Shen Tang didn't have the courage. She hadn't felt anything climbing up, but looking down now, it was at least 20 or 30 meters. Just thinking about it made her tremble uncontrollably. The commotion here attracted many beastmen to watch. When they saw Shen Tang's pathetic state, they all burst into laughter. Ryder instantly felt humiliated and fiercely told Shen Tang to jump down quickly and stop making a fool of herself. Anbei saw this comical scene, and a hint of mockery flashed in her eyes. When she looked at Xiaoyan and the others again, she put on a sympathetic smile. Prince Ryder, I have a mate who is a flying beastman. Why don't we have him transform and bring Shen Tang down? Ryder gave her an exasperated glance. Who is this person? Why is she meddling here? Xiaoyan and the others didn't even bother to give her a second look. Anbei felt humiliated because no one paid attention to her, but she wouldn't direct her resentment toward Xiaoyan and the others. She only looked at the fat figure in the tree more fiercely, wishing Shen Tang would fall and die immediately. Just then, Su Kang-jiu suddenly spoke. Shen Tang, there's something behind you. Shen Tang immediately shrieked. She thought there was another snake behind her, and her foot slipped in fright, causing her to fall directly from the tree. A 200 to 300 jin weight falling from a high altitude even created a large pit in the cushioning mat. Shen Tang was in a terrible state. Her clothes torn by sharp branches, revealing her pale, flabby flesh. But none of the onlookers pitied her. They all watched her like a clown performing. Shen Yi also frowned in disgust, but still stepped forward and asked softly, Are you all right? Shen Tang shook her head. Still in shock, she looked up at the tree. There was nothing there at all. She immediately realized she had been tricked, then glared fiercely at Su Kang-jiu. Shui Kang-jiu, however, merely glanced at her indifferently and turned to leave. Seeing that there was no more fun to watch, the crowd also dispersed. A hint of jealousy appeared on Anbei's beautiful face. Didn't Xiaoyan and the others avoid Shen Tang like the plague, wishing she would die to be free? But now, the atmosphere of this group seems different from before. It's all because of that annoying Shen Tang, ruining her good fortune. She must find an opportunity to get rid of Shen Tang. A place full of dangers like this is perfect for accidents. On the way back, Shen Tang's face kept appearing in Xiaoyan's mind. He suddenly realized that he wasn't as disgusted as before. He had to admit that if Shen Tang hadn't intervened in time to give him mental comfort this time, he might have already sacrificed himself for the country. Congratulations, host! Xiaoyan's favorability plus 2-0. Shen Tang had just returned to her room when she heard the system's broadcast. Her face was full of black lines. She had just made a fool of herself, and Xiaoyan's favorability immediately increased. This dogman really likes to see her make a fool of herself. The system's voice sounded again, now issuing a side quest for the host. Provide mental comfort to at least one male lead. Reward, 1 slimming pill. Quest deadline, before 12 a.m. tonight. Shen Tang frowned slightly. The time is so tight. Xiaoyan and Su Kangji's aversion to her was too high. They probably wouldn't allow her to approach them. Ryder was venomous and picky, a typical looks-obsessed person. No need to even think about him. After careful consideration, she decided to find her childhood friend, the fox, Shen Ye. Shen Ye's favorability was the highest among the 5 male leads, and since he had overcome his aversion, it was the right time to make a move. She went to Shen Ye's armored vehicle to look for him, but his teammate said he wasn't there, probably went to relieve himself. After leaving, Shen Tang asked the system, can you locate Shen Ye? Yes. Male-led Shen Yi has been detected in a hidden cave 1.5 kilometers away. He went that far just to go to the bathroom? Shen Tang didn't think much of it, and immediately hurried over. But as soon as she reached the entrance of the cave, she heard a suggestive gasp. Shen Tang's face instantly turned red. She didn't know whether to go in, fearing she would walk in on an awkward scene. Under the system's prompt, she learned that Shen Ye was undergoing a breakthrough, triggering a mental rampage. This was his most vulnerable moment, and she had to seize the opportunity. Shen Tang stood at the cave entrance, hesitated for a moment, then walked in. In the dim cave, Shen Yi was leaning against the wall. An abnormal flush appeared on his handsome face, and his expression was one of suppressed pain. Sweat had almost soaked his clothes, and his fiery red, fluffy tail was exposed behind him. This semi-beast transformation was a premonition of losing control. When he heard footsteps from the cave entrance, his cold pupils instantly constricted. The next moment, he quickly drew his pistol, ready to shoot. Shen Yi, it's me. Shen Tang's cautious voice came. Shen Yi recognized the person, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. How did this female get here? At this moment, the hair on his forehead was soaked with cold sweat, his Adam's apple swallowed hard, and his pulsing veins were faintly visible, throbbing wildly. Shen Tang nervously scanned Shen Ye's flushed face. His condition was worse than she had imagined. At this moment, Shen Ye spoke in a hoarse, cold voice. "Who told you to come here? I have something to ask you. Someone said they saw you heading this way, so I followed to take a look, and then I heard someone talking inside the cave. I didn't expect it to really be you." Hearing this, Shen Ye's voice became even colder and more violent. "Get out! Get away from me!" Shen Tang's heart flashed with unease. "He's too fierce!" At this moment, a bold thought suddenly flashed through her mind. A Beastman experiencing a mental rampage was a common occurrence. There was no need for Shen Ye to run all the way to hide in a cave. If he stayed in the army, it would be easier for him to receive female assistance, unless his actions in this situation were more like someone trying to hide a secret from outsiders. But her mission was just to conquer the male leads. There was no need to dig deeper. Shen Tang swallowed and tentatively said, "I just want to help you with mental comfort, if you drag this out any longer." However, before she could finish, Shen Yi suddenly grabbed her neck. His bloodshot eyes gleamed with a cold light. Shen Tang was both wronged and scared. "I know you hate me. You don't want me to give you mental comfort, so forget it. I was just being stupid to come here and meddle." Shen Yi's lips were tightly pursed, and the strength in his palm slightly relaxed. "Don't mention what happened today to anyone else." The cold light in his eyes remained, as if he would immediately kill her and abandon her body in the wilderness if the female in front of him said the wrong thing. Shen Tang nodded fiercely. "I didn't see anything." Shen Ye wanted to say more, but at this moment he seemed to have lost all his strength. After a painful groan, he collapsed heavily to the ground. Shen Tang took the opportunity to bolt, but just as she reached the cave entrance, the man's hoarse voice came from behind her. "Come back!" She turned and walked back to his side, looking wronged but also a bit defiant. "Didn't you tell me to get lost?" Shen Yi felt the power within him becoming increasingly uncontrollable. He simply closed his eyes and gave up. Start the mental comfort. After getting his approval, Shen Tang was eager to try. Her gaze involuntarily fell on the man's flawless, handsome face. At this moment, he exuded a fatal charm. He was truly the legendary fox spirit that could bring ruin to nations. His fluffy, soft crimson foxtail gently swayed, occasionally brushing against her calves and ankles. Shen Tang's heart itched, and she secretly reached out and touched it. The fluffy feeling was simply intoxicating. Unexpectedly, this small act of mischief was discovered by Shen Yi. He instantly opened his eyes and looked at her with disgust. "What are you doing?" Shen Tang quickly smiled apologetically and said her hand slipped. Shen Ye's eyes were deep, but at this moment, he was too lazy to argue with this lustful female. Next, Shen Tang didn't dare to make any more inappropriate moves and fully immersed herself in mental comfort. The white light emanating from her palm slowly dispelled the black mist on Shen Ye's body. As the black mist became less and less, the man gradually fell into a deep sleep. After everything was completely cleaned up, Shen Tang's strength was almost exhausted. Thanks to the gold stone Shen Ye had given her last time, this time she only felt physically tired and didn't pass out as embarrassingly as before. The system's voice sounded. "Congratulations, host. You have completed the side quest. Provide mental comfort to at least one male lead. Reward, 1 slimming pill." Shen Tang looked at Shen Ye, who was sleeping on the ground, guessing he would wake up soon, so she didn't bother him further and hurried back. That night, she took the slimming pill while bathing. The system reminded her that she could use the beauty-boosting cream again. There was only one last dose of the beauty-boosting cream left. Shen Tang simply used all 10 points at once. 10 minutes later, she looked at herself in the mirror. The pimples on her face had completely disappeared, not even leaving acne marks. Her skin was smooth and clean, and her weight had dropped to 190 jin. Although she still looked fat to the naked eye, she at least had a waist now. Shen Tang was very satisfied with her current situation, stretched lazily, and lay on the bed, happily falling asleep. The next day, the city lord convened a meeting, requesting everyone to continue forward and complete the rescue mission. Previously, he had sent Xiao Yan and Lu Xiao with an elite force to investigate the contaminated species, but unexpectedly, they were besieged by powerful, mutated creatures. Now only Xiao Yan had been found, the other teams remained unaccounted for. Females were also assigned tasks. There were many unbonded beastmen in the army, and the females needed to collectively provide mental comfort to these single males before battle to prevent accidents during combat. Shen Tang, having recovered C-grade mental power, was naturally assigned this task. When she arrived at the temporary square, the way people around her looked at her had subtly changed. That female who just walked by, was that Shen Tang? I almost didn't recognize her. Oh my god, how does she seem to be getting better looking lately? All the pimples on her face are gone and her skin looks very firm and smooth. Yeah, it's really strange. When I saw her yesterday, I thought her waist was as thick as a bucket. After just one night, she seems to have lost a lot more weight. Shen Tang listened to the discussions around her, a slight curve on her lips, feeling quite pleased. But just then, someone suddenly touched her from behind. Shen Tang immediately turned her head to look and saw a few scattered beastmen behind her, of average build, looking 40 or 50 years old. These were all old, single males who couldn't find females. Those who could come to this place of exile usually had some dirty deeds on their hands. A wave of bad luck and disgust welled up in Shen Tang's heart, but she didn't dare to rashly suspect others, thinking it might just be an accidental bump, so she didn't say anything. The middle-aged male beast saw that Shen Tang didn't suspect him, and his eyes became even more lecherous. Just as Jian Hui was about to reach out and grope her again, Shen Tang suddenly turned around, grabbed his arm before he could retract it, and desperately shouted, "Help! Someone's harassing a female!" Hearing this, everyone looked over. What happened? Someone's harassing a female again? Those old, single male beasts were repeat offenders, especially when females gathered to provide mental comfort. Someone always found an opportunity to grope them, but they didn't dare to go too far. The targets they chose were always ugly females without mate protection, such as the current Shen Tang. Yan Hui hadn't expected Shen Tang to be so bold, and immediately became enraged. "Don't falsely accuse me. Who saw me harass you?" Shen Tang retorted angrily, "With so many people here, why would I specifically target you?" Unexpectedly, the middle-aged male turned the tables. "So fat, who would want you? If you ask me, you're the one who wants a male and is deliberately seducing me." Several other old males of similar age also came over to help. "Exactly. Someone so fat and ugly, I wouldn't even want them if they were given to me for free. This fat hag doesn't even have a mate by her side. She must be trying to attract male attention this way." Shen Tang was trembling with anger, unable to say a single word. Meanwhile, everyone else present looked on as if watching a show. No one stepped forward to help. If a beautiful, delicate female was harassed, then strong, young males would definitely stand out as heroes to save the beauty. But for such an ordinary-looking fat hag, they had no pity. Those conspiring middle-aged males saw that no one was stopping them and became even more brazen, surrounding Shen Tang. Yan Hui was even more triumphant in his heart. "If you ask me, you're helpless and alone. Why don't you just follow me?" However, the next moment, he suddenly let out a pig-like howl, followed by the distinct sound of a hunt. Shen Ye rushed over, directly breaking his wrist, and then kicking him to the ground. When Shen Tang looked at the tall figure standing in front of her, the stunned crowd also let out a gasp. "How did Shen Yi get here? Yan Hui is finished now. How dare he harass Shen Yi's female?" But hadn't Shen Yi always disliked Shen Tang? Why would he help her? No matter what, Shen Tang is nominally his companion. If something like this happens, it's the male's face that's lost. Everyone was discussing amongst themselves. Shen Ye then turned to look at Shen Tang. He had lost his usual gentleness, and his face was even colder and more piercing than last night. "Didn't you see that when the females came, they all brought at least one beast axe with them to prevent such things from happening? You came alone, giving these scoundrels an opportunity. If I hadn't happened to pass by, I wouldn't dare to imagine what would have happened next." Shen Tang, whether from fear or grievance, felt tears welling up in her eyes and suddenly rolling down uncontrollably. "Of course I know, but you all hate me, no one is willing to protect me, so I can only come by myself." Tears and snot streamed down her face. Her already unattractive features, squeezed onto her swollen face, made her even uglier. If it were before, Shen Yi would definitely have been disgusted, but at this moment, he didn't mock her. Instead, he softened his voice and said gently, "Next time, you can call me. In the future, you can also let me accompany you." "Really?" Shen Tang looked up at him with anticipation. Shen Yi nodded vigorously. Seeing her flattered expression, an indescribable emotion arose in his heart. Even if he didn't like Shen Tang, they had grown up together, and now he was nominally her mate. Naturally, he couldn't stand by and watch her suffer such humiliation. Shen Tang curiously asked the system in her mind, has Shen Ye's favorability increased? She had long seen through this fox-like, outwardly warm but inwardly cold, two-faced person. That unfeeling demeanor from last night was his true face. She hadn't expected him to actually help her today. "Yes, host. After you provided mental comfort to him last night, Shen Ye's favorability surged by 30. His current favorability is 40. Please continue to work hard to win him over and strive to obtain his high-quality gene samples as soon as possible." Shen Tang was full of doubts. "What gene samples? The system stammered for a long time. That thing, host will know later. Shen Tang had a bad feeling, always sensing that the system had dug a pit waiting for her to jump in. But she didn't think much of it. At this moment, Yan Hui was still lying on the ground howling. A few accomplices helped him up, then glared fiercely at Shen Yan. Private fights among beastmen are strictly forbidden within the team. Your blatant action is a violation of military regulations. Shen Yi sneered, since you know the military rules so well, then you must also know that harassing females is a serious crime, right? Yan Hui adamantly denied it. Who saw me touch him? Don't talk nonsense without evidence. I wouldn't even want this fat hag if she was given to me for free. Shen Yi's expression instantly turned cold. In that case, do you dare to come with me to see the city lord? However, Yan Hui wasn't afraid at all. Go then, am I afraid of you or something? This kind of thing happens all the time. The city lord usually turns a blind eye, and besides, I didn't even succeed. At most, I'll be locked up for 2 days. At this moment, the city lord was holding a meeting in the armored vehicle, discussing the next course of action. Xiaoyan, Ryder, Xu Shangjiu, and over a dozen high-ranking beastmen were also present. Everyone wasn't surprised to see Shen Yi come over, but when they saw Shen Tang following him, they frowned deeply. What is this fat hag doing here? Shen Yi recounted the whole story to the city lord, and then brought Yan Hui and his accomplices forward. The onlookers looked at these old beastmen with disgust. These people were all repeat offenders. There was no need to wrongly accuse them. It was just unexpected that Shen Yi would specifically bring such a matter before the city lord. The city lord frowned and said he understood, but he didn't take it to heart, casually giving a 3-day confinement punishment as a warning. Xiao Yan, on the side, was very dissatisfied with this result. A fierce, murderous aura instantly erupted from him. It wasn't that he felt sorry for Shen Tang. He utterly loathed this fat hag, but no matter what, this female was nominally his female. He could bully her, but to be insulted by such old geezers was a slap in his face. He strode to Shen Tang's side and suddenly noticed that this fat hag had lost more weight, and the disgusting pimples on her face were all gone. Her skin looked soft and smooth, a world of difference from her former ugly appearance. Her changes these past few days were so great that Xiao Yan was momentarily dazed, almost unable to remember what she looked like before. Shen Tang saw Xiao Yan suddenly walk over and subconsciously took half a step back. But this dogman didn't leave. He just stopped in front of her, looking her over with interest. Shen Tang swallowed. Did this guy find something out? Did he realize I'm different from the original owner? She was about to say something to break the strange atmosphere when the man's deep, low voice sounded beside her ear. You are indeed different from before. Shen Tang's heart leaped. Ah, what does he mean? Xiao Yan scoffed and didn't answer. He turned and strode to the old males, a cold smile on his lips. Confinement? What kind of punishment is that? At this moment, his eyes suddenly turned bloodthirsty and cold. He grabbed the old male named Yan Hui, bound him with chains, and then kicked him out of the vehicle. Living is also a scoundrel. It's best to die. Xiao Yan's sudden action caught everyone off guard. The city lord's face paled. Xiao Yan, what are you doing? Xiao Yan sneered. Cleaning up scum, city lord. Dozens of armored vehicles drove steadily on the main road of the contaminated zone, followed by thousands of contaminated zombies, a dense black mass letting out roars. Xiao Yan's action was equivalent to directly throwing Yan Hui into the zombie swarm. The iron chain was connected inside the vehicle. Yan Hui couldn't keep up with the speed of the armored vehicle. He screamed desperately, but no one saved him. Soon, he lost strength and fell to the ground. Sharp stones and thorns on the ground pierced his body, dragging a long trail of blood across the ground. After a violent collision, at the moment the chain broke, he was instantly flung backward, then completely submerged by the surging zombie swarm, not even bones remaining. His accomplices instantly turned pale with fright. They didn't even have time to run and were all thrown out of the vehicle by Xiao Yan to become food for the zombie swarm. This scene happened in just a few minutes. Although the city lord looked displeased, he ultimately said nothing, only ordering that beastmen be strictly forbidden from harassing females in the future. Shen Tang hadn't even expected Xiao Yan to actively stand up for herself. Xiao Yan strode to her side, his voice as cold and disgusted as ever. Don't always do such embarrassing, stupid things. Do you only bully those weaker than you, using all your tricks on us? Hearing this, Shen Tang pouted. Sure enough, she was overthinking things. This dogman still dislikes her so much. He only acted because he was disgusted with her, and felt embarrassed by her. After this farce ended, Shen Tang went back to help the other single beastmen in the army with mental comfort. After all, she would be protected by the male Beastman on this journey, so it was only right for her to contribute. This time, no one was touching her. It went very smoothly. After completing the task, her mental power was also depleted. She planned to return to the armored vehicle to rest. At this moment, the system's broadcast suddenly sounded in her mind. Congratulations, host. Shen Ye's favorability, plus 2-0. Xiao Yan's favorability, plus 2-0. Ryder's favorability, plus 1-0. Shui, Kangji's favorability, plus 1-0. Shen Tang was pleasantly surprised. Today was a day of bountiful harvest. This increase in favorability was probably related to her comforting the male beastmen in the army. It should be known that mental comfort was extremely energy-consuming, and many females were too lazy to assist their mates, let alone strange male beasts. Most females would try their best to find excuses to shirk such tasks. Unless it was an emergency, they would reluctantly take action. If it were the original owner in this situation, she would definitely look for an opportunity to escape the mission. Shen Tang's changes over these past few days were noticed by the beastmen. Although they spoke disparagingly, it was impossible for them not to be touched in their hearts. No male would dislike a gentle and kind female. Even if she wasn't good-looking, their favorability would increase somewhat. In the following days, the contaminated species encountered by the team became increasingly formidable. Nearly 100 soldiers had already been lost. The team brought by the city lord was already the sharpest force in the city. If they couldn't rescue the lost team, and even lost this sharp force, it wouldn't be worth it. This also caused morale to drop further. Some people suggested that the city lord return along the original path, but at this point, they had already traveled more than half the distance, with only a few tens of kilometers left to the trap team's destination. How could they turn back halfway? But the path ahead would only become more dangerous. Without hope, the morale of the army would inevitably become unstable. Just then, Anbei suddenly brought good news. He had discovered a valuable purified gold mine a few kilometers ahead. As soon as this news came out, morale instantly soared. If they could find the gold mine and bring those purified gold stones back to the city, it would be a huge gain. The food and water sources used in the city were all contaminated and needed to be purified before consumption. Purification required purified crystal stones, so purified crystal stones were extremely valuable. Although Shentang and Anbei were at odds, she was also happy to hear this news. If they could obtain purified crystal stones, all the beastmen in the entire city would benefit. However, at this moment, the system suddenly issued a warning. The purified gold mine ahead is a trap set by a high-level contaminated species. Host, please leave the team as soon as possible. Shen Tang's face suddenly changed, and she immediately moved to find Shen Ye. There might be an ambush ahead. We have to take another route. Shen Yi looked at her meaningfully. An ambush? How do you know? Shen Tang deliberately spoke loudly, making sure all the beastmen present could hear her. She had to change the army's route as much as possible. She didn't want to go to her death with this group of beastmen. At this moment, Anbei walked out of the crowd, his words full of disgust and vigilance. Shen Tang, are you crazy? Don't spread rumors here and disturb everyone's mood. Shen Tang spoke with conviction. What I'm saying is true. There's really a dangerous contaminated zone ahead. How could such a large-scale purified crystal mine suddenly appear? This is clearly a trap set by contaminated species, just waiting for us to walk right into it. Hearing this, some people began to have doubts. A beastman asked Anbei, "Are you sure your mental power detection wasn't wrong?" Anbei immediately became furious. I have B-grade mental power. You don't believe me, but you believe a C-grade mental power trash? Do you even have brains? B-grade and C-grade mental power seem to only have 1 grade difference, but it was a chasm-like leap. C-grade and below mental power could only be used for comfort, while B-grade mental power could detect the environment. This was precisely Anbei's capital for arrogance. But now, Shen Tang, this piece of trash, dared to challenge him. Anbei's molars were almost ground to dust. You, a mere C-grade mental power user, can't even detect the environment. What right do you have to question my words? Shen Tang slowly uttered one word. Intuition. Are you joking? You want us to give up on the spiritual comfort based on your ridiculous intuition? The expressions of the people present were also ugly. Was this fat hag playing a trick on them? Shen Ye and the others also frowned tightly, clearly thinking Shen Tang was unreliable. Seeing this, Shen Tang exhaled deeply. What I'm saying is true. If anyone doesn't want to die, follow me on another path. The crowd saw that she didn't seem to be joking and exchanged glances. Even if this fat hag is stupid, she wouldn't be so foolish as to risk her own life to harm others, right? Is there really danger ahead? Anbei's mate, Bai Shi, pondered for a moment, then gently advised. It is indeed unusual for a goldstone mine to suddenly appear ahead. Why don't we just forego this goldstone mine? Our mission on this trip is to find the lost team. Regardless of whether there is good fortune or disaster ahead, it is not within our plan. Anbei hadn't expected even his favorite mate to question him and immediately became even more enraged. But the more this happened, the more he wanted to prove himself. He was a B-grade mental power female. How could he lose to this trash, Shen Tang, this ugly monster? Whoever believes this trash can go with her. When we get the Goldstone mine, don't even think about getting half a piece. Although some people had doubts, whether for profit or trust, almost everyone stood by Anbei and the City Lord. If they could really dig up purified goldstone, it would be an overnight fortune for anyone. Shen Tang also knew that her words held no convincing power. She pursed her lips and looked at Shen Yi. Shen Yi frowned, hesitated for a moment, then decided to take another route with Shen Tang. Shen Tang's face was filled with surprise, thinking that Shen Yi believed what she said. In fact, Shen Yi didn't believe there was danger ahead. Shen Tang leaving the team would surely be a dead end, and he couldn't just watch her go to her death. Anbei looked at Shen Yi with a look of dismay. What was even more unbelievable to him was that Xiaoyan also stood behind Shen Tang. His posture was lazy and casual. Whatever. Fewer people, more peace. Su Kangju's eyes flashed with a deep meaning. He said nothing, just leisurely walked behind him to show his stance. Ryder was full of doubt and indignation. Are these three guys crazy? This fat hag is going crazy again. Why are they joining in the fun? But he looked disdainfully at the remaining stragglers of the army. Being with them was worse than being with Xiaoyan and the others. At least they were guaranteed. Thinking this, he also hesitantly walked behind Shen Tang. The four men had different thoughts. Shen Tang didn't care what they were thinking. She had achieved her goal anyway. As the four mates joined Shen Tang's faction, dozens of Beastmen also successively stepped forward. Xiaoyan and the others were the pillars of the army, and many loyal followers, as well as several females, also stepped forward. They didn't want to take high risks. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that it was safer to follow Xiaoyan and the others. Seeing this scene, Anbei gritted his teeth furiously. He only said to Shen Tang grimly, "Just wait to be humiliated." Shen Tang sneered and said nothing. Let's wait and see who will be humiliated in the end. Anbei heavily bumped her shoulder as he left, then turned his head, looking unwillingly at Xiaoyan and the others. Everyone knew he liked Xiaoyan and the others. He was clearly the most excellent female in the city. As long as they could find the purified gold mine, they would surely look at him with new eyes. Xiaoyan saw the female looking at him with a direct gaze, his eyes still containing that disgusting desire. A strong feeling of disgust immediately surged in his heart. He simply didn't like females and hated clingy, brainless idiots the most. Compared to the city lord's tyrannical and ordinary daughter, Xiaoyan even felt that Shen Tang, this fat hag, had become somewhat more pleasing to the eye. At least she wasn't as ugly now, and not as annoying. Shen Tang saw this dogman suddenly turn his head to look at her, a flicker of doubt in her heart, wondering what he meant. But then Xiaoyan's face darkened, and he turned his head away again, probably muttering something to himself. At the same time, the system's voice sounded in her mind. Congratulations, host. Xiaoyan's favorability plus 1-0. Shen Tang was stunned. This dogman's favorability increased so inexplicably. Most of the Beastmen still followed the city lord to search for the purified goldstone mine. Shen Tang's team went to another secluded path. After nightfall, Shen Tang wasn't sleepy, so she sat by the campfire outside the tent, staring blankly. Shen Yi walked over and handed her a bottle of nutrient solution. Have something to eat. Shen Tang shook her head. I don't like drinking nutrient solution. She took out a few pieces of jerky from her light brain space. This was dry food she had prepared before coming. However, the moment she bit into it, a well-defined, bony hand swiftly snatched the jerky away. You're already so fat, and you're still eating? Shen Tang's mouth twitched. Give me back my jerky! This is my dinner tonight! You're already so fat. Eat less, I'll help you lose weight. Xiaoyan looked at her still fat body, undisguised disgust flashing in his eyes. However, the dry jerky in his hand smelled quite good. He chewed it twice, and the next moment, his eyes lit up. It tastes good! Where did you buy it? Shen Tang smiled proudly. Of course I made it myself. Xiaoyan snorted disdainfully. This fat hag is lazy and gluttonous. How could she have made it? Shen Tang was too lazy to explain again and took out another piece of jerky from her space, eating it with relish. Xiaoyan didn't know what he was thinking. He turned and left. A moment later, he dragged over a wild beast resembling a cow, processed it on the spot, and took out a few pieces of the tenderest meat. Make it for me now. I'm hungry too. After eating the jerky earlier, he suddenly found the nutrient solution difficult to swallow. Shen Tang's face was full of black lines. How can jerky be made and eaten fresh? She turned to look at the campfire in front of her and immediately had an idea. How about we eat barbecue today? It's even tastier than jerky. The seasonings Shen Ye had given her were still in her light brain space, just waiting to be used. Xiaoyan frowned slightly. He had never heard of barbecue. Most beastmen lived by drinking nutrient solution and eating raw meat. Studying recipes was a waste of time for them. Shen Tang suddenly felt they were quite pathetic. How boring life must be without enjoying delicious food. She immediately told Xiaoyan to find some branches to make a barbecue grill and called Shen Ye to help her marinate the meat and make skewers. Xiaoyan was initially dismissive, but seeing the two of them busy and Shen Tang's confident demeanor, he actually became a little curious. What kind of tricks could this guy pull off? So he turned and went into the woods to find dry firewood. These two idiots actually believe that lazy, gluttonous fat hag can cook? Ryder scoffed in his heart, too lazy to stay with them, fearing he would also be infected with stupidity. Shu Kangju, on the other hand, transformed into his true form and lazily coiled himself on a tree, not bothering to join in the fun at all. Half an hour later, Xiaoyan held a blackened something, his face full of disgust. This is what you call barbecue? He thought. This fat hag isn't trying to poison them, is she? Shen Tang's face was embarrassed. This was a mistake. I didn't control the heat well. I'll grill it for a shorter time next time. You'd better not be deliberately wasting food, or you'll go hungry from now on. Xiaoyan's face was cold. He must have lost his mind today to actually believe her. Although Shen Yi didn't speak, judging from his tightly knitted brows, he clearly didn't believe Shen Tang either. This time, Shen Tang gradually mastered the heat. The meat quickly turned golden brown and dripped oil. The gradually spreading aroma made the two men beside him uncontrollably swallow their saliva. A moment later, Shen Tang took out the skewers. Try them. How are they? Xiaoyan had long been unbearable with the aroma of the meat. He took a skewer and shoveled it into his mouth. The next moment, his pupils lit up. Delicious! Although it was so hot that he gasped for breath, he didn't slow down, like a hungry ghost reincarnated. Shen Ye saw Xiaoyan eating with such relish. He also put aside his prejudice and started eating. His eating manners were very elegant and refined, giving off a feeling of extreme enjoyment. Ryder was lying in front of a tree not far away, cultivating himself behind closed doors, but suddenly caught a whiff of an enticing meat aroma. He swallowed hard and looked up, only to find that Shen Tang and the others were barbecuing. How could it smell so good? Could this fat hag really cook? At this moment, a hint of regret appeared on his face. If he had gone to help earlier, he could have gotten some too. But for him to actively ask for food was absolutely impossible. He utterly loathed this fat hag and didn't want to have any relationship with her. It's just a barbecue anyway. As a noble prince of New Atlantis, what delicacies haven't I tasted? Ryder got up irritably and moved to a farther spot, but that meat aroma kept drifting into his nose, causing his saliva to flow wildly and preventing him from sleeping. He felt that this fat hag was definitely doing it on purpose. Ryder gave them a cold glare from afar, turned over, and tried to block out the meat aroma. But he had always disdained drinking nutrient solution and hadn't eaten anything all night, so he was already ravenous. Now, he was even more craving it to the point of going crazy. It was impossible to get him to willingly ask for food. He had no desire to be associated with females. Shen Tang, however, smiled, frequently glancing at Ryder, hoping to entice that arrogant merman to come over and beg for food. But he underestimated the merman's resolve. Such a fragrant aroma hadn't even tempted him. A hint of frustration flickered in Shen Tang's heart. After thinking it over, he still took a few skewers of meat and walked over. Ryder saw Shen Tang approaching and inwardly prayed, "What do you want?" "I saw you hadn't eaten anything tonight, so I brought you some roasted meat," Shen Tang said. Only then did Ryder notice the skewers in his hand, and his sarcastic remarks caught in his throat. Although he was drooling uncontrollably from hunger, he still retorted stubbornly, "I don't need your charity, and don't even think I'll ever like you." Shen Tang was utterly speechless. This guy was truly suffering for the sake of his pride. He shoved the skewers into Ryder's hand. "Eat it if you want. I personally brought it to you. Why are you still being so fussy?" Exposed, Ryder flared up in anger. "I don't want to eat it." Shen Tang couldn't be bothered to argue further. "If you don't want to eat it, just throw it away." With that, he turned and left. Ryder silently watched Shen Tang walk away, then saw him sitting by the bonfire, laughing and chatting with Shen Ye, never glancing back at him. It seemed Shen Tang really had just brought him food, and had no intention of deliberately pestering him. Could this fat woman really have changed? He swallowed hard, looking at the skewers in his hand, and finally couldn't resist taking a bite. Crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, with juices overflowing. It was simply the best thing he had ever eaten in his life. His gaze towards Shen Tang softened, tinged with a complex emotion. Suddenly, he felt that this ugly female didn't seem so annoying after all. At this moment, the system's voice chimed in Shen Tang's mind. Congratulations, host. Shen Ye's favorability increased by 10. Xiaoyan's favorability increased by 15. And Ryder's favorability greatly increased. Now out of aversion. Reward, 100 boxes of purified water, automatically stored in the system backpack. Shen Tang listened to the system's continuous notifications, a pleasant smile curving his lips. He grilled a dozen more skewers, planning to go and improve his favorability with Sui Zhangju. When he arrived at the tree where Shui Zhangju usually rested, he found that the white snake was no longer there. Shui Zhangju always came and went without a trace. If he didn't want to be seen, Shen Tang definitely wouldn't find him. Shen Tang sighed, having to give up for now. Meanwhile, at the camp, other beastmen were unable to sleep due to the enticing aroma. They emerged from their tents one by one, searching for the source of the delicious smell. I've never smelled grilled meat this good. Who's cooking it? It seems like Shen Tang is grilling meat. How did he make it so fragrant? I wish I could taste some. Several females also approached Shen Tang, curiously asking, "Is this your grilled meat? It smells so good." Shen Tang smiled and handed them a few freshly grilled skewers. "Try some." The females were somewhat flattered. After all, their relationship with Shen Tang hadn't been good before. They had even often mocked him in private. They never expected him to proactively offer them roasted meat. There was still a lot of meat left from the wild ox hunted earlier. He called over several thin individuals, had them clean, and processed the remaining lean meat, and then roasted all of it. The thin individuals ate enthusiastically, and some even went out to hunt more beasts, specifically to learn Shen Tang's grilling method. People gathered in groups of 3 or 5 around the bonfires by the river, and the formerly quiet camp became filled with laughter and cheerful chatter. In stark contrast to the relaxed atmosphere here, the beastmen who followed Anbei on another path had a completely different experience. Upon reaching the supposed Jishi mine, they were ambushed by high-level corrupted creatures. Only then did everyone realize with dread that there was no such thing as a Jishi mine. It was a complete and utter trap. The city lord, with great difficulty, led them to break through the encirclement, but the originally large team was cut in half, with many wounded and disabled. Despair filled everyone's hearts. The people on Shen Tang's side were enjoying their roasted meat when they faintly heard cries for help from a distance. Xiaoyan led a pair of elite beastmen to respond. Half an hour later, a group of beastmen appeared, covered in wounds. Some had even lost limbs, and their morale was extremely low. Shen Tang's beastmen, however, were well-fed and energetic, presenting a stark contrast. "How did you get so injured? What happened? Did you find the Jishi?" The injured beastman replied with bitter regret. "Don't even mention it. There was no Jishi mine at all. It was a trap set by those corrupted creatures." They were filled with regret. If only they had listened to Shen Tang back then, they wouldn't have had to barely escape with their lives. And for the beastmen who had originally followed Shen Tang, some had initially regretted missing out on a chance to get rich, but now their hearts were filled only with relief. Anbei was also in a terrible state, her hair disheveled, her body covered in bloodstains. One of her loyal followers was missing. The moment she saw Shen Tang, her expression twisted into a dark, distorted grimace. She lunged at her like a vengeful spirit. "You B*TCH. You clearly knew that was a trap, and yet you deliberately incited me to go there. What's wrong with you?" Shen Tang had long been wary of this madwoman. The instant Anbei lunged, she swiftly dodged. Anbei's rage boiled over. "You knew there was danger there. Why didn't you stop us? You just let us walk into a trap. You did this on purpose." Shen Tang felt like this person had a serious mental illness. Don't just open your mouth and slander people. Who here didn't hear my warning that the Jishi mine was a trap? You insisted on going, and now you want to blame me? Do you really think everyone else is as foolish and brainless as you? Anbei didn't expect this ugly creature to be so sharp-tongued now. She was even more enraged, wishing she could tear Shen Tang's mouth apart. A cold glint flashed in Shen Ye's eyes as his tall, imposing figure shielded Shen Tang. When Anbei saw Shen Ye protecting this ugly creature, she became even more furious, almost losing her mind. As the saying goes, when the wall falls, everyone pushes. The people who had originally trusted Anbei now stepped forward, angrily accusing her. You, with your esteemed B-grade spiritual power, didn't even detect the lurking corrupted creatures? We trusted you so much. If you hadn't insisted on taking us to find the Jishi mine, my brother wouldn't have died in that place. At this, Anbei was almost on the verge of fainting from anger. You ungrateful wretches! What right do you have to accuse me? You were the ones who wanted a share, who insisted on following me. Why are you putting all the blame on me? In the end, she had become the clown everyone pointed fingers at. Shentang couldn't help but pity her for a second. She could only blame herself for her misfortunes. Finally, the city lord intervened, and only then did the crowd dare not speak further. However, their anger still simmered, and their trust in the city lord's daughter greatly diminished. Just then, a Beastman suddenly sniffed the air. "It smells so good! What are you eating here?" The newly arrived Beastmen, who had been fleeing all this way, were starving. They all smelled the rich aroma of roasted meat. Anbei also couldn't help but swallow, looking towards the bonfires. Shentang calmly explained with a smile, "You've returned just in time. We're roasting meat to eat." With hundreds of people returning, the remaining meat certainly wouldn't be enough. When Shai and the others processed the lean meat, they had discarded the internal organs, which Beastmen considered garbage. But only true foodies knew that internal organs are the essence of deliciousness. Shentang licked her lips. "Those internal organs taste great after being processed." Hearing this, Anbei sneered disdainfully. "I thought you were so kind, making us eat these disgusting internal organs. Are you deliberately trying to humiliate us?" Shentang immediately retorted, "If you don't want to eat internal organs, then have your own Beastman go out and catch wild beasts. I only offered this suggestion because everyone is exhausted. If you dislike internal organs, you can find your own way to fill your stomach. These foods were also hard-earned by us. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world." Anbei was speechless, unable to utter a single word. She just glared at her fiercely. "Only animals eat internal organs. Whoever wants to eat it can eat it." With that, she angrily turned and left. Everyone present looked disgusted. Internal organs usually smelled awful, and Beastmen had never eaten such things, mostly throwing them away as trash. Could they really be edible? However, half an hour later, the Beastmen were all drooling, enticed by the pervasive aroma of meat. Seeing Shentang heartily eating a skewer of roasted pig liver, they completely abandoned their aversion to internal organs and eagerly scrambled to eat. Only after truly tasting them did they realize how delicious the things they had once considered trash actually were. The heart meat was firm and chewy, the liver meat thick and rich, and the roasted skin was crispy and fragrant. Breaking open the roasted bones, the marrow inside was like jelly, even more flavorful than roasted meat. "It's so delicious. I've never eaten anything this good in my life." Wasn't Shentang lazy and greedy? When did her cooking skills get so good? I really underestimated her before. This female Shentang is a bit ugly, but her cooking skills are so good, and she's kind-hearted enough to proactively make us roasted meat. It seems we've misunderstood her all along. Anbei's stomach ached with hunger from the enticing aroma of the meat. She was both anxious and resentful. How did this fat woman change so much these past few days? Not only is she not as ugly, but she's also become so popular, stealing her spotlight. She reluctantly looked at her loyal follower, Bai Shi. "It's just roasted meat, who can't do it? Go catch a wild beast for me right now." Upon hearing this, Bai Shi's face stiffened. It was impossible to see the road clearly at night, and who knew how many corrupted creatures were lurking outside. Going out to find food now would be simply courting death. "What? Even you want to defy me?" Anbei was annoyed with everyone now. Even her usually doting Bai Shi received a harsh look. Bai Shi gently comforted her. "I'll go catch a wild beast for you tomorrow. It's too late tonight, and it's dangerous outside." Anbei thought about it and didn't say anything more, but her stomach was growling loudly. Another loyal follower saw this and immediately stood up. "I'll go ask Shentang for some meat to eat." However, Anbei immediately yelled at him, "You come back here." If her loyal follower went to that ugly creature for food, wouldn't that be a slap in her face? None of you are allowed to go ask that fat woman for roasted meat. If anyone dares to go, I'll break off our companionship. At these words, several loyal followers' expressions turned sour. Let this woman starve herself, but she wants to drag them down with her too? But she was, after all, the city lord's daughter, and a valuable B-grade spiritual female. It was naturally impossible to break ties with her over a meal of roasted meat. Meanwhile, the other satisfied beastmen were enjoying their feast and no longer dared to look down on Shentang. What intrigued everyone even more was how Shentang knew that purifying the gold mine was a trap. Did she really have such accurate intuition? A beastman specializing in tracking ran over to ask him, but Shentang only said it was a random guess, offering no further explanation, which only made everyone more curious and admiring. Just then, the system's voice rang out. "Congratulations, host. You have completed the hidden mission, winning hearts. Reward, 100 boxes of high-energy compression biscuits." Reward automatically sent to the system backpack. Shen Tang was slightly surprised. There's a hidden mission for this too? He glanced into his system backpack and indeed saw 100 more boxes of compressed biscuits. Water and food are both available. How afraid is this system of him being stranded in the wilderness? As Shen Tang pondered this, the system's notification sound rang out again, now issuing a new side mission for the host. Help the male lead, Lu Xiao, escape danger. Reward, 1 facial feature enhancement. Mission duration, 3 days. Please complete the mission as soon as possible, host. Shen Tang thought to herself, this mission isn't difficult. I just need to follow the team to the destination. It was just a bit rushed on time. And at this moment, Shen Ye, who had just finished an impromptu meeting, walked over and announced that due to the heavy casualties and dwindling dry rations, the city lord was demanding the team return the way they came. Hearing this, Shen Tang frowned slightly. So the Beastmen trapped in the contaminated zone? They're just abandoning them? Shen Yi glanced at her, surprised that this female would, for once, care about distressed Beastmen, but then he smiled. Do you think the city lord is really that kind-hearted? He spent a fortune and personally led the troops out to save people? After so many days, those people must already be dead. Even if we rush back now, it would be pointless. The true purpose of their trip was to obtain the energy core in the abandoned factory where the trapped team is located. The energy core contains immensely powerful energy, and besides that, it can also be exchanged for a large amount of redemption points. If they can get the energy core, they can leave this polluted land and return to the Empire. Shen Tang frowned. If the city lord took the team back the way they came, her mission would definitely fail. She did have a large amount of supplies rewarded by the system in her space, and she could guarantee that Lu Xiao's team was still alive and waiting for rescue. But what reason could she use to tell the others? Last time, with the Jixing mine trap, she could at least make up an excuse, but this time, it wouldn't be so easy. The entire team was resting tonight. Shen Tang planned to think carefully about a countermeasure. The city lord then issued another order. To prevent sneak attacks by contaminated creatures, females must have a male escort by their side. In other words, females had to find a loyal male to sleep with them at night. Shen Tang's mouth twitched slightly. 4 of those dogmen avoided her like the plague. Who was she supposed to find? Xiaoyan refused without a second thought, stating he had female aversion syndrome. Any female within 2 meters of him made him feel sick. Ryder was utterly disgusted. He couldn't imagine sharing a bed with an ugly, fat creature. He'd rather die. Zue Zhengjiu was nowhere to be found. Shen Tang gritted her back teeth, ready to break them. These dogmen really didn't give her any face. Finally, she could only look pitifully at Shen Yi. Shen Yi saw this fat woman, acting cute, and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Even the gentle smile on his face almost slipped. He rubbed his temples and said softly, all right, I'll sleep with you tonight. It'll be good to have someone to look out for in case of danger." Hearing this, Shen Tang was overjoyed. "That's great. Big brother Shen Ye is truly the best to me." Shen Yi paused for a moment, surprised to hear her call him Big Brother out of the blue. This address was very unfamiliar to him. His complex gaze fell on Shen Tang's chubby face. At least she has turned over a new leaf and isn't beyond saving. Thinking this, a charming smile played on his lips. "Big brother naturally has to take good care of you." These words almost made Shen Tang's ears pregnant, and her face unconsciously flushed. She truly lives up to his reputation as a fox spirit who ruins nations and brings disaster. He really knows how to charm. However, she knew very well that Shen Yi had no real feelings for her. Shen Yi always wore a smiling face, treating both males and females with the same charming demeanor, unintentionally flirting everywhere. He was practically a central air conditioner. Shen Ye's strength couldn't compare to Xiaoyan or Su Ezangjiu, but he was definitely the most popular male in the city among females. At this, Xiaoyan noticed Shen Tang's face, red as a monkey's butt, and cast a strange, disgusted glance at Shen Yi, thinking, what's that flirtatious fox up to again? Shen Tang followed Shen Ye to his tent. When they lay down, Shen Yi placed 2 rectangular pillows between them, his gentle voice carrying a warning. "Behave yourself tonight. Don't cross the pillows." He didn't finish his sentence, but Shen Tang's heart skipped a beat because she felt the other party's blatant killing intent. She blindly nodded. "Don't worry, I definitely won't cross the quote 38th parallel." Shen Yi didn't understand what the 38th parallel was, but didn't ask further. As long as she didn't do those disgusting, stupid things anymore, that was fine. At this moment, the system's broadcast suddenly sounded in her mind. "Congratulations, host. Shen Yi's favorability increased." Shen Tang's heart leaped, and she looked at Shen Ye with shining eyes. Sure enough, this fox is the easiest to win over. Shen Yi met her excited gaze and immediately frowned, thinking she was up to no good again. The system's urgent warning followed immediately. Warning! Shen Ye's favorability is trending downwards. Host, please immediately stop your infatuated behavior. Shen Tang quickly pulled her gaze back and obediently pretended to be asleep. Shen Yi saw that she made no other movements and finally lay down, relieved. However, just as he was about to loosen his belt, he suddenly paused. After glancing at Shen Tang again, he obediently straightened himself and even put on 3 more layers of clothes, even adding a buckle to his belt. Shen Tang didn't know about the man next to her taking precautions against perverts. She would have probably coughed up blood from anger. She closed her eyes but felt no sleepiness. Outside the tent, the sounds of male and female pairs occasionally drifted in. Male beastmen fought for long hours during the day and needed comfort at night. And the best comfort, naturally, was the most primitive method. Shen Tang even felt a little aroused listening to it. She secretly peeked at Shen Ye, who had his back to her, wondering if he was asleep. Shen Yi, however, was also wide awake. He suppressed the agitation in his heart, got up, and coldly stated, "I'm going out to change shifts," then left the tent. Half an hour later, just as Shen Tang forced herself to fall asleep, she was jolted awake by the system's alarm. "Host, wake up! Someone is trying to harm you." Shen Tang instantly lost all sleepiness. "Who's trying to harm me?" At the same time, she got up and looked outside in horror. However, the next moment, the ground beneath her feet instantly cracked open. A rough hand suddenly grabbed her ankle, dragging her into the earth. Shen Tang didn't even have time to scream for help before she instantly vanished from the spot. When Shen Tang next woke up, she found herself being carried on the shoulder of a short, stout male beastman. "Who are you? What do you want to do?" Shen Tang tried to move, only to find her entire body bound by chains, unable to move at all. She quickly asked the system in her mind and discovered that this place was over a dozen miles from the camp. The rock rat beastman just silently carried her, having run this far. The rock rat beastman sneered in response. "Blame it on offending someone you shouldn't have. Miss Anbei specifically sent me to deal with you. I'm just doing a job for money, so just accept your fate." Shen Tang's face turned grim. She knew Anbei had held a grudge against her, but she never expected her to actually dare to make a move. The rock rat beastman took her to a secluded mountain cove. Looking down from above, it was a dark, sprawling area. Shen Tang vaguely heard the roaring sounds of some kind of creature, and goosebumps rose all over her body. The rock rat beastman was clearly afraid of those creatures. He didn't dare to proceed further, but casually threw Shen Tang onto the ground. "Just stay here. Those things will come for you soon." With that, he instantly burrowed into the ground and disappeared. But he didn't anticipate that Shen Tang had the system. Unlocking the chains was simple. After freeing herself, Shen Tang wanted to return the way she came and expose the crimes of those bastards. However, the system's voice suddenly rang in her mind again. "Location detected. The male lead. Shuizhangjiu, at the lake 2 kilometers ahead. Host, please proceed with the strategy as soon as possible." Shen Tang was both surprised and speechless. She was barely able to protect herself now. How could she be in the mood to strategize and please men? The system calmly analyzed. After the host disappeared, there was panic in the camp. Shen Yi led people to search everywhere for the host's whereabouts, and the mastermind, Anbei, must surely believe you're dead this time. It would be better for the host to return later, suddenly appearing from the dead to scare them to death. Shen Tang hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Then I'll follow your advice and go find Shuizhangjiu first." The moonlight gently bathed the silver blue lake. Half an hour later, Shen Tang, covered in dirt, hid behind a tree, then witnessed a dreamlike scene unfold before her. A silver-haired man emerged from the water, his upper body clad in some sort of uniform, his broad shoulders and narrow waist looking both lean and powerful. Shen Tang's eyes widened. She hadn't expected such a perk after being bestowed by the heavens, but because she was too excited, she unconsciously took a step forward, accidentally stepping on dead branches and leaves. "Who's there?" Shuizhangjiu heard the movement and suddenly turned his head to look in Shen Tang's direction. Shen Tang, startled, quickly retreated backward, crouching down to try and hide her plump figure behind the large tree. But then the movement in front of him ceased. She cautiously peeked her head out towards the lake, only to find the figure in the water had vanished. As she wondered, a cold, damp breath suddenly assaulted her from behind, and at the same time, a deep, resonant voice boomed in her ear. "Are you looking for death?" Shen Tang, startled, plopped down onto the ground, looking in horror at the man who had appeared behind her like a ghost. "Weren't you just bathing in the water?" How did you suddenly get behind me? Shui Zhangju radiated a murderous aura. Who gave you the nerve to spy on me bathing? Shen Tang quickly explained, I didn't intentionally come to spy on you. I just happened to pass by and accidentally stumbled upon you. However, Shui Zhangju didn't believe her nonsense at all. He casually reached out and clamped her neck. Shen Tang's face instantly turned crimson. What I said is true. If you don't believe me, go back to the camp and ask. I was murdered tonight. That person threw me into the contaminated zone, wanting me to fend for myself. I really didn't lie to you. Shui Zhangju dangerously narrowed his eyes, pondering for a moment before loosening his cold grip. Shen Tang fell to the ground, clutching her neck and coughing violently. Shui Zhangju, however, turned to leave without the slightest hint of concern. Shen Tang, seeing this, quickly got up and called out to him, Don't go! I need you to come with me. A female like me stuck in the contaminated zone definitely won't survive tonight. Shui Zhangju's voice was cold and sarcastic. What does that have to do with me? If you keep following me, I don't mind sending you to your death first. Shen Tang's heart seized up. Other male leads might just be venomous in speech, but this snake wasn't bluffing her. In the original novel, this snake beast's personality was extremely reclusive. The contaminated empire was like an uninhabited land to him. A big reason he was reluctant to follow the team was to avoid Shen Tang. It was too unrealistic to actively ask for his protection. At this moment, Shen Tang suddenly remembered a plot point from the original aid mission. Sui Zhangju disliked her, yet still had to reluctantly obey her because a chip had been implanted in his heart, giving control over his life and death. Thinking of this, Shen Tang spoke. Didn't you always want the chip's secret key? If you help me this time, I can consider unlocking it for you. Sui Zhangju's gaze was cold as frost. Are you threatening me? In reality, he no longer cared about these things. At most, they would die together. He didn't want to live anyway. Shen Tang quickly explained, It's not a threat, just a negotiation. Shui Zhangju stared at her for a while, a glimmer of thought flashing in his eyes. After a moment, he slowly spoke. Fine, what do you want me to do for you? Escort you back to the camp? Shen Tang shook her head, pulling up the map route she had saved from Xiaoyan's light brain. Take me to the abandoned factory. A hint of surprise flashed in Shui Zhangju's eyes, but he didn't pay much attention to it. After all, it made no difference to him where they went. He scanned the map and then turned to walk. He walked at a steady pace, showing no intention of waiting for Shen Tang. Shen Tang had to run just to keep up with his speed. The two walked along the direction marked on the map. The closer they got to the abandoned factory, the more contaminated creatures they encountered, and their levels increased. However, these contaminated creatures were powerless against Shui Zhangju, and all became food for the giant snake. Shen Tang felt both safe and scared by his side, fearing that he might get annoyed and swallow her too. Sui Zhangju sensed her nervous feelings. He, who had been silent all the way, suddenly asked, Where exactly is the secret key? Hearing this, Shen Tang's heart skipped a beat. In truth, she didn't know where the secret key was. Although the chip was implanted by the original owner, she had no memory of it. She was merely using this reason to string him along and get him to do her bidding. If they returned to the Imperial Palace, she might find clues. She would certainly try her best to help him remove the chip. Even if she couldn't find the secret key, it wouldn't be considered lying, because she had only said she would consider unlocking it, not fully agree. At this moment, Shui Zhangju stopped, and Shen Tang, not having time to react, almost bumped into him. She looked away guiltily. Why aren't you walking? Shui Zhangju, in turn, looked down at her sarcastically. You don't want to say, or you simply don't know? You've changed a lot these past few days, like a completely different person. Hearing this, Shen Tang's heart was in a panic. Could Sui Zhangju have noticed something? She was about to come up with an excuse to deflect, when she saw the man turn away from her and look ahead, slowly uttering a single word. Here, Shen Tang walked over and realized they were at a cliff. Below the cliff was a dense, vast jungle. Not far away, the outline of the factory appeared under the dim sky. How do we get down from such a height? Shen Tang muttered to herself. She turned her head and suddenly met the man's cold, eerie gaze. Shui Zhangju's eyes looked at her as if he were staring at a dead object. The system in her mind suddenly let out a sharp warning. Warning! Male lead Shui Zhangju's favorability has plummeted. He has now entered a darkened state. Shen Tang's pupils constricted in fear, and she turned to run. However, the next moment, she was grabbed by the man and dragged back to the edge of the cliff. Shui Zhangju utterly detested her fat face. She was not only full of lies, but also hypocritical and ugly. But it no longer mattered who she was. Go to hell, he said, a chilling smile playing on his lips. The next second, he unhesitatingly threw Shen Tang off the cliff. At that moment, the fear of death instantly enveloped Shen Tang's entire body. In the fierce cold wind, the system's voice sounded just in time, detecting fatal danger to host, activating protection system. A faint green light instantly enveloped Shen Tang, then converged into a barrier, surrounding her. She floated down like a feather, safely landing at the bottom of the cliff. As the green light slowly dissipated, Shen Tang suddenly lost all strength and collapsed to the ground. Her face was pale, her eyes unfocused. The momentary brush with death left her stunned for a long time. She never expected that snake beast to try and kill her. Shen Tang trembled, filled with rage. This man tried to kill me! How am I supposed to complete the strategy now? I'm not doing this strategy mission. Either the system changes hosts, or it changes the target. I'm not serving these dogmen anymore. However, the system remained silent. Shen Tang anxiously called out a few more times, but there was still no response. Just then, rustling sounds suddenly came from around her. Immediately after, thousands of insects crawled out of the ground. Shen Tang got goosebumps at the sight. She immediately took out the insect repellent from her system backpack and sprayed wildly. A large number of insects sprayed by it died with a rustling sound. The nearby insect swarms were extremely afraid of the spray's scent and scattered, disappearing without a trace. After some mutated insect beasts died, gray gold dust appeared on the ground. At this moment, the system's voice sounded, "Killing mutated creatures has a certain chance of yielding gold dust. These gold dust can be exchanged for corresponding redemption points when taken back to the city. After use, they can also quickly replenish Beastman's ability energy." Shen Tang's face lit up with surprise. "You're still alive! That's great! I called you just now and there was no sound. I thought you were gone." The system does not die. It just exhausted its energy and entered a low power state. Please strive to complete the mission so the system can have more energy to serve the host. After calming down, Shen Tang continued to rush towards the abandoned factory, only a few hundred meters away. Fortunately, she didn't encounter any high-level zombies. The mutated insects had been eliminated by her insect repellent. Now, she had over 300 pieces of gold dust in her system backpack. When she arrived at the factory, she found the wounded Beastman lying motionless on the ground. If it weren't for the faint sounds of breathing in the air, one might have thought it was a giant morgue. When some of them saw Shen Tang suddenly appear at the entrance, a hint of surprise flickered in their hollow, dim eyes. How could a female wander into this place? Is she here to seek shelter? Unfortunately, they had been trapped here for half a month and were barely surviving themselves, let alone helping others. Shen Tang breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that the team was still alive. "It's great that you're still alive. I've been looking for you." The crowd looked at her with various expressions. Is she a beastman sent from the city for support? But why is she a female? Their eyes held a certain expectation. At least the city still remembered them. They hadn't been abandoned. The support troops will be here soon, right? You're here to give us a heads up, aren't you? We can finally leave this hellhole. Shen Tang saw the beastman's excited expressions. She hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell the truth. "You've been abandoned. The support troops sent from the city were attacked and have already returned the way they came. I accidentally ended up here." The crowd instantly froze, their faces filled with confusion and emptiness. Shen Tang stated that she wanted to see their captain. The beastman immediately became wary. "What's your relationship with him?" "I'm his companion." Hearing this, everyone looked incredulous. Isn't the captain's companion that ugly, fat Shen Tang, who everyone in the city hated? And this female in front of them, although considered ugly among ordinary people, was much better than that fat Shen Tang. Could it be that she's trying to trick them into seeking shelter? Shen Tang's face was covered in black lines. She almost forgot that this group of beastman stereotypes about her were still stuck in the past. She reluctantly took out her light brain and opened her personal information for them to see. The nearest beastman rubbed his eyes, making sure he wasn't mistaken. "Oh my god, it really is Shen Tang. The personal information authentication on the light brain can't be faked. But how did she suddenly become not so ugly? Not only is she not as fat as before, but her skin also looks smooth and clean." Everyone started talking amongst themselves. Even their spirits seemed less sluggish. 2 minutes later, Shen Tang saw the tall figure she hadn't seen in a long time. Lu Xiao's figure was a bit leaner than when they first met, but his imposing presence remained. "Why are you here?" Lu Xiao's usually stern face showed a hint of surprise when he saw Shen Tang. Unsure if he was surprised by her appearance at the abandoned factory or by the changes in her. After only half a month apart, her skin had become fair and delicate, and her figure was no longer as bloated. Shen Tang's voice held a hint of urgency. "Why I'm here, we can talk about later. First, gather all the surviving beastmen in your team. I have something important to tell you. Lu Xiao didn't know what this female wanted, appearing here for no reason, but when he met her determined gaze, he still gathered the team. As of the night before yesterday, their supplies had been completely exhausted, and all the Beastmen hadn't eaten a single bite. When they set out, there were 207 people in the team, but now only over 60 remained. Moreover, they had been in a state of hunger and thirst for a long time and could no longer resist the new wave of mutated creature invasions. At most, they could last another 3 days, and the outcome would only be to starve to death. Despair permeated everyone. Lu Xiao looked at Shen Tang. "You shouldn't have come here. Given the current situation, we can't get you out alive." Shen Tang met his gaze with a smile. "But I can get all of you out alive." Hearing this, Lu Xiao was instantly stunned, and everyone else looked over. They wondered if this female had gone crazy. How could she be in the mood to joke in such a situation? Shen Tang didn't waste any more words. She directly took out 100 boxes of purified water and 100 boxes of high-energy compressed biscuits from her space. If she had first stored everything in her light brain space and then taken it out from there, it wouldn't have aroused suspicion. The supplies instantly covered the entire ground. Everyone present was dumbfounded, and some even shed tears of excitement. They were finally saved. Lu Xiao also hadn't expected Shen Tang to actually bring supplies. He first arranged for half of the supplies to be distributed to the team members, and the other half to be kept as a reserve. The hungry and thirsty Beastmen couldn't wait. As soon as the supplies were distributed, they pounced on them like hungry tigers. Lu Xiao, meanwhile, took Shen Tang to a secluded spot. "How did you end up here, and with so many supplies?" His cold, stern gaze was like an interrogation, as if no lie could escape his eyes. Shen Tang instinctively felt nervous, but then thought there was nothing to hide. She simply told him everything, from being framed by the female to being thrown into the wilderness, until she coincidentally encountered them. Lu Xiao still stared intently at her. "Where did the supplies come from?" Shen Tang had already thought of a reason. "After all, I'm an imperial princess. How could I not have some private savings? In the wages you used to give me, I also saved a portion of that money to buy supplies. In case of an accident in the future, I at least have a way to save myself." Hearing this, Lu Xiao sneered. "It's hard to believe you even thought of that. I thought all your money was donated to casinos for charity." Shen Tang's mouth twitched. She was afraid Lu Xiao would see through her again, so she deliberately mimicked the original owner's arrogant and overbearing manner. "I'm bad, not stupid. Of course I have to keep something to save my own life. If it weren't for me, you'd have to rely on yourselves to leave this wretched place. I wouldn't have been willing to take out these supplies." Lu Xiao relaxed slightly when he heard her say this. Based on his understanding of Shen Tang's selfishness, how could she possibly be so kind as to hand over supplies? This explanation actually made him trust her more. But no matter what, she had indeed helped them through this difficulty. Lu Xiao's cold gaze once again fell on Shen Tang, noticing that her exposed skin was covered in bruises and some scratches that looked like they were from branches. She must have suffered a lot on this journey. But she didn't cry or make a fuss like before, which surprised Lu Xiao somewhat. His gaze lingered on her for a few more seconds. "Congratulations, host. Lu Xiao's favorability increased by 20. Host, please continue to work hard." Shen Tang heard the system's sudden voice and looked at Lu Xiao in surprise. She saw the man immediately withdraw his gaze when their eyes met, his stern face no different from usual. Shen Tang chuckled inwardly. "I didn't expect this guy to be so reserved." Then she said mysteriously and playfully, "Actually, besides supplies, I have other good stuff in my hand." With that, she took out all the gold dust from her system backpack. The bottle of insect repellent was used up, and she had harvested over 300 pieces of gold dust. These gold dust were enough to quickly restore the Beastman's combat power to its peak. Lu Xiao's face showed a hint of sternness. "Where did you get this gold dust from? You know, this stuff is very hard to buy with money, let alone hundreds of pieces at once." Shen Tang didn't want Lu Xiao to suspect her, so she simply stated openly, "Everyone has their own secrets. Don't worry about this. But the gold dust isn't free. You and your subordinates need to help me get the energy core hidden in the factory." Hearing this, Lu Xiao narrowed his deep eyes. He hadn't expected her to even know about the energy core. He now suspected that this fat woman wasn't just accidentally stranded here, but had a premeditated plan to approach them. Shen Tang sensed his scrutinizing gaze and inwardly thought, "This dogman is indeed from the military. His reconnaissance ability is truly top-notch." She simply pretended not to see his suspicious gaze. "I heard about the energy core from Xiaoyan and Shen Ye. They said the city lord personally led people to the contaminated zone precisely to obtain the energy core from the abandoned factory. That energy core must be very valuable, and of course I can't come here for nothing." We need to get our hands on this good stuff, Lu Xiao said. Hearing her, Lu Xiao knew that Xiaoyan had safely returned to the troops and felt a sense of relief. He walked to the table and pulled out a file. We're also here to get the energy core, but it's not that simple. The energy core is stored on the lowest level of the underground laboratory, but a very powerful monster, a test subject, is also held there. Even if the team recovers to peak combat strength, they're not its match. Shen Tang felt it was a pity, but she wasn't someone who sought death. If they truly couldn't beat it, she would just have to give up. The gold dust she had was useless to her, so she simply gave it all to Lu Xiao to gain favorability. Lu Xiao looked at her suspiciously but ultimately accepted it. The entire team will rest tonight. We'll depart tomorrow morning. You can rest in this workshop for now. Before leaving, he told Shen Tang, "Thank you. Congratulations, host. Favorability gained. Please continue to work hard." Shen Tang, physically and mentally exhausted, found a few stacked mattresses in a corner and collapsed, falling into a deep sleep. In her hazy sleep, she heard the low growl of some creature, which instantly jolted her awake. She got up and walked out of the room, finding that several other beastmen were also awake, but they were lazily yawning, clearly accustomed to the sound. Shen Tang could clearly feel the sound coming from underground, but seeing that no one else was concerned, she figured it was probably nothing. So she returned to the room, intending to continue sleeping. However, the next second, a violent explosion suddenly erupted from deep underground. The entire factory trembled. All the beastmen in the factory were instantly startled awake. Someone yelled, "Run! That monster is out!" Hearing this, Shen Tang's face turned pale, and she immediately followed the beastmen, frantically rushing outside. She instinctively looked back and saw a massive creature crawling out of the broken elevator shaft. Lu Xiao and some of the beastmen were using suppressing fire against the monster, buying time for the others to escape. When Shen Tang saw the scene outside the factory, her pupils suddenly constricted. Mutated creatures surrounded the factory, at least 1,000 of them, densely packed. Some beastmen transformed into their beast forms and fought desperately against the mutated creatures. If it had been before, they would have had no chance. But tonight, they were well fed and energized by the gold dust, and were actually holding their own against this group of mutated species. But the situation on Lu Xiao's side was dire, because the monster seemed to feel no pain. No matter how they attacked, it could tear a small one to shreds with a single bite. At this rate, the complete annihilation of the army was only a matter of time. Shen Tang's mind raced, and she suddenly thought of an idea. She shouted towards Lu Xiao's direction, "Lure this monster outside." Hearing this, all the beastmen present inwardly cursed. Is this fat woman crazy? High-level mutated species can control lower-level ones. They even suspected that the ones outside were lured by this monster, and Shen Tang still wants to release it? If they unite, wouldn't they die even faster? Although Lu Xiao didn't understand what Shen Tang intended, recalling what she had done today, a hint of wavering appeared in his heart. In an instant, he transformed into a majestic eagle, his sharp talons wielding powerful wind blades, directly tearing off a large chunk of the monster's flesh. Monster was instantly enraged by this, and charged fiercely at the eagle with blood-red eyes. As Lu Xiao swooped down next to Shen Tang, he grabbed her and flew outside. Shen Tang quickly took out the blue potion from her embrace and threw it at the monster behind them. The scent emitted by this berserker potion had a maddening effect on contaminated creatures, causing them to go berserk and furiously attack the source of the scent. Lu Xiao's eyes flashed with a hint of disgust. He never expected her to have something like this. The moment the glass bottle shattered on the monster, the scent of the blue liquid rapidly permeated the air. The mutated creatures outside suddenly lost interest in the warriors and instead redirected their attacks, roaring as they rushed towards the giant monster. The test subject let out an angry roar. With one swipe, dozens of mutated species were splattered. But the number of mutated species was too great. Even an elephant would fear thousands of ants. The people watching this scene were all stunned. What's happening? Why are they fighting among themselves? But no matter what, this was their best chance to escape. Just as Lu Xiao was about to lead Shen Tang away, she urgently patted Lu Xiao's steel-like eagle claws. "Don't go yet! Put me down first!" Lu Xiao's deep voice held a hint of anger. "Now is not the time for your whims. If we don't go now, it will be too late." Shen Tang was anxious. "Do you still remember the energy core? While that test subject is preoccupied and unable to move, we need to quickly go to the underground laboratory and get the contamination core." Lu Xiao struggled for a moment. Then, instead of putting Shen Tang down, he directly swooped into the abandoned factory with him. He landed and transformed into his human form, his uniform instantly enveloping his slender, sword-like body. Shen Tang didn't have time to see any good stuff. Lu Xiao didn't miss his slightly regretful gaze, his brow furrowing fiercely. He whispered, "Behave yourself." Shen Tang awkwardly turned his head away, no longer looking at him. The two quickly arrived at the underground laboratory. Lu Xiao had been here once before, but unfortunately he was no match for the monster and was forced to retreat. He pressed the button on the wall, and a secret passage instantly opened in front of them. Walking in, they saw the energy core placed inside a bulletproof glass container. Lu Xiao's palm transformed into a sharp blade, cutting the glass to retrieve the energy core. At this moment, Shen Tang heard that familiar monster's roar again. "Oh no! The test subject is coming after us! Run!" Lu Xiao threw a bomb in the laboratory, quickly transformed into his beast form, grabbed Shen Tang, and flew upwards. As they were about to fly out of the main entrance, they narrowly brushed past the pursuing monster. Before the monster could react, a factory instantly exploded. Lu Xiao's speed soared like a supersonic fighter jet, flying several miles in the blink of an eye. Shen Tang's body suddenly felt weightless, and he almost fainted. "Big brother, slow down." Only then did Lu Xiao slow down, flying towards a certain direction in the dense forest. The team escaped to safety, and their light brains regained signal. They arrived at a designated meeting point. Hearing the soaring sound from high above, the people below looked up and cheered when they saw Lu Xiao returning with Shen Tang. As Lu Xiao landed and transformed into his human form, Shen Tang's legs went weak, and she collapsed to the ground, vomiting uncontrollably. Seeing her appearance, everyone felt a trace of pity. Thanks to Shen Tang this time, otherwise they wouldn't have made it out alive. The Beastman's perception of her changed as a result. The former Shen Tang was like a rat in a sewer, disliked by everyone. But now, she had not only become much better looking, she had also kindly helped them escape the factory. The Beastman's disgust towards her dissipated. "Congratulations, host. You have completed the hidden mission, winning hearts. Reward, oral correction, and repair." Shen Tang was overjoyed to hear the system's notification. This reward is great. She had been tolerating rotten teeth for a long time. They were crooked and terribly yellow. No matter how many times she brushed her teeth a day, there was always a faint odor. Because of this, she had been mocked countless times by Shen Yi and those dogmen. This deeply stung the self-esteem of a blossoming youth. She wanted to fix her teeth now and make those dogmen look at her with new eyes. But then she thought it might be too hasty. Skin improvement could be attributed to medical treatment, but her crooked teeth suddenly becoming straight would certainly arouse suspicion. So she decided to ask the system to slow down the speed of the tooth correction, estimating 1 to 3 months to restore them to perfect dental alignment. At this moment, the system's voice sounded, "By the way, host, Lu Xiao's favorability has greatly increased, now breaking through the aversion value and reaching a normal relationship. Reward, 1 weight loss prescription." Shen Tang was delighted, but for now, she wasn't in a hurry to take it. She'd wait until they returned. The team's vehicles had long been damaged. Fortunately, most of the team consisted of flying beastmen. Each flying beastman could carry one other person back. Lu Xiao searched for a while, but couldn't find Shen Tang. Later, he found her secretly hiding behind a tree, doing something. His brow furrowed, and he called out in a low voice, "The team is about to set off! Get ready!" Okay, I'll be right there!" Shen Tang quickly emerged from behind the tree, beaming. Lu Xiao had never seen Shen Tang smile so brightly and couldn't help but look at her face a few more times. He wondered if it was his imagination, but he felt like Shen Tang didn't look as ugly when she smiled today, and it was even quite pleasant. However, he didn't pay too much attention to it. Lu Xiao hesitated, then said in a cold voice, "I'll take you on the way back. You can ride on my back." Shen Tang's heart leaped with joy. She hadn't expected Lu Xiao to proactively offer to let her ride him. At this moment, Lu Xiao transformed into his true form, a majestic eagle. His physique was huge and powerful, his feathers shimmering with a metallic luster, exuding a beauty of strength and speed. Just now, in the abandoned factory, due to the urgency of the situation, he hadn't paid much attention. Now, admiring him slowly, Shen Tang only thought, "So handsome." She climbed onto his back, following his tail. At that moment, she could clearly feel the eagle's body sinking slightly. Shen Tang's face instantly turned red, so embarrassed she felt like she was digging a 3-bedroom, 1-living-room apartment with her toes. Fortunately, Lu Xiao didn't say anything. After she was settled, the eagle flapped its wings and swiftly ascended to a high altitude. Meanwhile, at the garrison camp, after Shen Tang was ambushed last night, she still hadn't been found. Her whereabouts were unknown, and she was presumed dead or alive. This incident caused collective panic among the females in the camp, who demanded an explanation. It wasn't that they cared so much about Shen Tang, but they feared becoming the next victims. The city lord also had to take this matter seriously. Shen Ye, Xiaoyan, and Ryder all had various expressions. No matter how much they disliked that fat woman, She was at least their female. Now that she had gone missing right under their noses, it was a dereliction of duty for the males. All of them felt disgraced. To be honest, they somewhat regretted it. If only they had agreed to sleep in the same tent with that fat woman that night, this wouldn't have happened. As for Anbei, she was absolutely delighted. She believed that ugly creature must be completely dead. As long as she wasn't found within a month of going missing, she would automatically be declared dead. Then, Xiaoyan and the other's marital status would change to single, and that would be her perfect opportunity to make her move. However, she couldn't wait that long. She wanted to snatch them up now. She especially put on beautiful makeup and then went out to find Xiaoyan. They had barely walked 2 steps when they happened to see Xiaoyan returning from outside. The man was enveloped in a cold, murderous aura and appeared to be in a very bad mood. A hint of jealousy surfaced in Anbei. Could he have gone out to look for that ugly creature? That ugly creature is dead and gone, yet he's still so troublesome. As she approached, she immediately put on a gentle and polite smile. Brother Xiaoyan, have you encountered something troublesome? You can tell me, perhaps I can help. Xiaoyan glanced at Anbei indifferently, and then withdrew his gaze, not even bothering to acknowledge her before striding away. This female's personality was notoriously arrogant and unruly, and now she was even trying to seduce him? She should look in a mirror and see if she's worthy. Anbei watched as Xiaoyan completely ignored her, not even looking at her as he walked away, and immediately stomped her foot in anger. But the more this happened, the more she wanted to possess this man. She would make Xiaoyan regret it sooner or later. The next time Xiaoyan's spiritual power became restless, she would definitely kneel and cry, begging him. Just thinking of that scene made her smirk triumphantly. When that time came, she would definitely humiliate this arrogant man severely. She wanted him to kneel at her feet and beg for his affection. Xiaoyan didn't know that Anbei was fantasizing about him in her mind. Otherwise, he would have been so disgusted he'd throw up his overnight meal. After he, Shenye, and Ryder met up, the 3 exchanged glances and shook their heads. They had searched everywhere nearby but still couldn't find her. Shen Tang had been missing for almost 24 hours. In this situation, there was basically no chance of survival. She might have already ended up in a mutated creature's stomach, Ryder said venomously. This fat woman is really good at causing us trouble. It's better if she's dead. This prince will have some peace and quiet in the future. Although he said this, there was no sign of happiness on his face. Instead, he turned and walked towards the edge of the dense forest again. Shen Yi frowned, looking at him. What are you gonna do? Ryder replied irritably. Go look again, see if that fat woman is really dead. I need to see her alive or see her corpse. He wasn't truly concerned about her, because among the 5 of them, he and that fat woman were part of an imperial marriage alliance. If that fat woman really died, he would become a widowed official, unable to remarry. Xiaoyan's face was cold, showing no emotion. Shen Yi, however, looked guilty. It was all his fault for not keeping an eye on her. He was about to go search further afield when he suddenly caught sight of Shui Zhengju walking over from not too far away. This snake beast always came and went without a trace, and he didn't expect him to appear today. Shen Yi walked forward in surprise and asked, You're often outside. Have you seen Shen Tang? She went missing last night. Shui Zhengju glanced at him and said faintly, No. Shen Yi deeply exhaled a mouthful of carbon dioxide. Shui Zhengju subtly sized him up. He knew what kind of person this fox was. A two-faced schemer with honeyed words and a dagger in his heart. On the surface, he was quite good to Shen Tang, but in reality, his disgust for her was definitely no less than his own. But now, this anxious expression seemed to hold a bit of genuine emotion. Could that female have given them some kind of bewitching potion these past few days? Shui Zhangju sneered inwardly. It's a pity they'll never find her. She fell off the cliff and was smashed to pieces. There was absolutely no chance of survival. But just then, a message from the city lord suddenly came through on their light brains. Xiaoyan glanced at it, his face full of shock. The missing team has returned! And they brought Shen Tang back. Shui Zhangju instantly froze in place. He had clearly thrown that female off the cliff with his own hands. How could she still be alive? The man's thin lips were tightly pressed, his face grim, lost in thought. Shen Ye noticed the momentary change in Shui Zhangju's expression. A hint of deep meaning flashed in the fox's passionate eyes. Are you hiding something from us? Did you perhaps see her that night? Shui Zhangju coldly glanced at him, ignoring him, and turned to leave. Xiaoyan and Ryder were already used to this snake beast's reclusive and aloof personality, so they didn't pay much attention to his somewhat unusual behavior. Shen Ye, in a good mood, walked towards the Linqi Plaza. Shen Tang is truly blessed with great fortune. Let's go. As her loyal companions, we should go and see her, and also ask who harmed her. Sui Zhengju suddenly stopped when he heard the fox's last sentence. His hands, hanging by his sides, clenched and then relaxed. In the end, he still went to the plaza with the three of them. Lu Xiao led the team back to the main force. From a distance, Shen Tang saw a dense crowd below. Almost all the Beastmen had come. The Beastmen were cheering for the return of the vanguard team. Many females, however, looked disgusted. There were those who were happy and those who were jealous among the crowd. Shen Ye and the other two were also present. Their figures were tall and straight, their appearances handsome, easily capturing the attention of the entire audience. When Shen Tang saw Sui Zhengju following behind them, the smile on her face instantly froze. Sui Zhengju also saw her. The moment their eyes met, Shen Tang's heart skipped a beat. She quickly turned her face away, pretending not to see him. Out of sight, out of mind, a hint of unnaturalness flashed across Sui Zhengju's face. He had imagined many possibilities on the way here. This fat female would publicly reveal the truth, accusing him of murder. If that happened, he would be directly executed. Or perhaps she would become hysterical, roaring and going crazy, questioning why he did it. But she did none of that. Instead, she coldly ignored him. Ling Qi, death by 1,000 cuts, was not terrifying. The process of waiting for Ling Qi was the most agonizing. Sui Zhengju, who is reclusive by nature, had long since lost the desire to live. Rather than becoming a lowly dog chained up, he would rather bite his master back before death and drag him down with him. He would rather this fat woman declare his death now than deliberately string him along. What exactly does she want to do? For the first time, he couldn't see through this shallow and foolish female. Sui Zhengju stared intently at the plump figure, not even realizing that a never-before-felt interest in Shen Tang was rising within him. And when a man develops an interest in a woman, it is often the beginning of something fatal. Congratulations, host. Sui Zhengju's favorability increased by 20, currently at 80 from aversion. Host, please continue to work hard. Shen Tang's face was covered in black lines when she heard the system's sudden voice. Is this snake really mentally ill? When I was being humble and trying to please him, his favorability dropped, and he even tried to kill me. Now that I'm ignoring him, his favorability is skyrocketing. At this moment, the city lord called Lu Xiao over for questioning. Lu Xiao glanced at Shen Tang and said faintly, "You didn't rest well last night either. Go back and rest first." Shen Tang had been anxious and frightened for the past 2 days, not getting a single good night's sleep. After returning to a safe environment, exhaustion washed over her. She walked towards the tent, planning to get some good sleep. Lu Xiao told the city lord about his experiences over the past half-month, not even concealing the fact that Shen Tang had brought supplies and helped them break through the encirclement. The city lord listened, his face full of disbelief. Where did that useless female get the supplies? Could it be from her previous savings? He thought about it, and it was indeed possible. After all, she was an exiled imperial princess. Logically, her assets should have been confiscated long ago. But who could guarantee that she didn't secretly stash away some private money? The city lord was only puzzled for a moment, then believed this explanation. What he cared about was another matter. What about the energy core? Did you find it? Lu Xiao shook his head, regretting. Below the abandoned factory, there's an underground hive laboratory. I found that the energy core is hidden on the lowest level of the laboratory, but unfortunately there's also a high-level ability test subject there. We were no match for it, and could only escape first. I didn't get the energy core. What he said this time was also true. The energy core was not in his hands, but had been stored by Shen Tang in her light brain space. Lu Xiao also believed that the energy core was obtained by Shen Tang and did not belong to him. Therefore, the ownership of the energy core was entirely in Shen Tang's hands. He did not intend to tell the city lord about this. This city lord looked disappointed, then casually asked a few more questions before waving Lu Xiao away to rest. After Lu Xiao left, the city lord waved another Beastman over. This person was his informant planted in Lu Xiao's patrol team, loyal to him, responsible for monitoring Lu Xiao's every move. The city lord was well aware that the arrogant young elites in the city were not loyal to him, especially Xiaoyan and the other 5, whose powerful strength made him feel a growing sense of crisis and forced him to be vigilant. The summoned Beastman recounted the events in full. His account basically matched what Lu Xiao had said. A hint of doubt flashed in the city lord's eyes. It seems Lu Xiao wasn't lying. Could it be that he was overthinking things? At this moment, the Tiger Clan Beastman suddenly remembered something else. Oh, there's one more thing. I saw Lu Xiao return to the factory before retreating, and then he came out again after only about 10 minutes. Afterward, the factory exploded. Everything inside should be gone. Hearing this, the city lord's eyes darkened. Lu Xiao returned to the factory before retreating. and even deliberately blew up the laboratory, Shen Tang returned to his tent and immediately fell asleep. After this ordeal, no one should be bothering him for a while. Just as he was about to fall asleep, the system's notification sounded in his mind. "Congratulations, host. You have completed the side mission. Help the male lead, Lu Xiao, escape danger. Reward, 1 facial feature enhancement." The host can choose any part of the facial features to adjust according to your preference. The adjusted appearance will take effect immediately. When Shen Tang heard the system's words, all sleepiness instantly vanished from her mind. She had tolerated this pampered appearance for a long time. Without hesitation, she chose her eyes. As the saying goes, the eyes are the windows to the soul. To win over these difficult men, how could she not have a pair of enchanting, expressive eyes? After making her selection, an electronic light screen appeared before Shen Tang's eyes, like the character creation page at the beginning of an online game. The default face shown was her current face. She really wished she could completely reshape her entire face, but unfortunately, she could only choose one part of her facial features for each adjustment. At this moment, the system began to tempt her enticingly. "Host, diligently complete missions, and you can gain another opportunity for facial reconstruction." Shen Tang couldn't be bothered to respond. The dogmen she was assigned were all difficult to win over. She focused intently on the face sculpting task. Shen Tang wanted to directly create a pair of captivating, quote, peach blossom eyes that would make men fall head over heels for her with just a blink. Unfortunately, it would be too fake and easily noticeable. Eyes that were too exquisite and beautiful would also look out of place on her face. Shen Tang thought for a moment and decided to adjust based on her original facial structure so it could significantly enhance her appearance without making her look like a completely different person. She spent half an hour sculpting until she was satisfied. Her original puffy eyes were gone, replaced by a pair of small, fan-shaped inner double eyelids with slightly upturned outer corners, carrying a hint of delicate charm. Just then, Shen Yi's voice came from outside the tent. "Shen Tang, are you asleep?" Shen Tang's heart stirred. She couldn't help but want to see the reaction of these dogmen. She closed her light brain and replied, "Not yet, what's up?" Shen Yi lifted the tent flap and slowly walked in, his gentle voice carrying a hint of apology. "That night was my fault. I shouldn't have left midway, otherwise that wouldn't have happened." Shen Tang turned around and gave him a gentle smile. "It's okay. It's not your fault. If anything, it's the fault of the person who plotted against me." Shen Yi met her gaze and instantly froze. Shen Tang blinked curiously, her upturned eyes like small hooks, gently scratching at his heart. The feeling was tingling,